Hello and welcome to another Behind the Streamer. Today we will be talking of the one and only The One Christo, known as a caster, a streamer, and so much more. I'm excited to get down to what is behind the man, the myth, the legend. But to start, as I start with all these interviews, conversations, what should I call you during this?
What an intro that was. I'm like all flustered now. You can call me, honestly, you can call me Chris. It's probably easiest. Go with
Perfect,
that.
Chris.
I actually recognize that, so we'll do it.
Excellent. And call me John. You don't have to put the plain talk there. Just call me John. Works out.
Can I call you PTJ?
You know
Kind of a
what?
mouthful.
Sure. If
I won't do that, but it's a mouthful.
you have my permission, it is a mouthful, but if you're feeling bold, go for it.
Sweet.
So to start, I just want to know, I guess, a bit about your background. Let's just start. Education's not a bad place to start. You can start earlier than that.
Sure.
Pick a spot you like, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so education's a funny one. I was actually earlier this morning watching your interview with Bushy talking about the U.S. college system. So being Canadian, it's slightly different. But I actually studied kinesiology.
What's
And
that?
I had, when I was young, had this whole thing about like, oh, I'll become a doctor. And then I realized it's really hard to get into med school.
Mm-hmm.
And at least in Canada, you do a bachelor's degree first a lot of the time. So it's like kinesiology is a good transitional point. And then I graduated from that and decided I don't want to go to school anymore. So
Oh,
kind of gave up on that whole bit.
interesting.
Um, yeah,
So what
it
is that
was.
study, if you don't mind me asking? I don't recognize it.
So kinesiology is the study of the human body in motion, essentially.
Okay.
So like we did a lot of biomechanics or how the body moves, the forces exerted on the body when they move, and it's tied in a lot to, or at least for what I studied, athletic therapy and athletic training.
Okay.
So if you exert more of a force on a certain body part, an injury occurs. What's that injury physiologically? How do you do rehab on it? It's a lot of times a bachelor's degree, like a physiotherapist would do, and then go do a master's in physiotherapy, or you could go and do something around personal training, a lot of research options, stuff like that.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. And then, but you did not ultimately pursue this because you didn't want. You sounds like med school was just not the path for you. At the end of this, didn't want to go down.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was one of those things where, a 5-year-old kid has like, I want to be either a police officer, a firefighter, or a doctor kind of thing.
Okay.
I think it just kind of stuck with me for a long time. And then after going through the schooling and all that, I was like, you know what? I just kind of want to get out there and do things. And the worst part is I wasn't even sure what I wanted to do because I went through all of these 3 years of studying for something that I didn't really want to do.
Okay.
So I ended up getting out of that and then figuring, okay, what life skills do I have that I can turn into a career?
Mm-hmm.
And running my mouth seems to be one of them. And so I went the sales direction and
Interesting.
moved into a sales role. Yeah, and then haven't looked back since.
Interesting. Was it hard for you to come with terms getting to the end of your schooling, being like, well, this isn't gonna work out? It sounds like you did all the work. You got through the first like boss battle, so to speak. You had your childhood
Yeah.
dream, you did all your education, you get to the end, you're like, yeah, so actually, why don't we not do the med school? Was there like any emotion of that? Or were you just like,
It
I'm
was
done?
it was kind of twofold because I found less of the emotional response and more of the kind of programmed response of, well, you're just supposed to this is what you're supposed to do. Now that you have your bachelor's degree, now, either continue on and get a master's or go to med school or go
Mm-hmm.
into a career in that field. Just that's what you're supposed to do. So I think for me, it was more a fight around, hey, is it right to just throw this all away? But
Interesting.
emotionally, I was kind of like, I don't want to say checked out because I think that's too strong a word, but I think I was at the point where I said, you know what, I'm not really enjoying this, so why would I keep doing it?
I think
And so that
mhm.
felt pretty good.
It makes a lot of sense because all the way, one thing that's ironic about schooling is it's all very linear, as you're implying. You're like, all right, you go through your primary school education, you eventually go through high school, in at least states where you go elementary school, middle school, high
Mhm.
school. You're up in Canada though, might be a little different. Go to college, and then after college, yeah, you have those a couple linear paths. And for you, already had a foot in that medical field, and you're like, oh wait, actually, I'm actually this isn't for me. I think it shows a lot of like being in check with yourself. You get to the end of this, you're like, okay, hold on, pause, pull it back. Look at my skill set. Let's not do medicine. Let's do something else. Do you
So
tell me? Mhm.
I was kind of cut you off for a second because I think that it's funny as you're saying it out loud back to me, I'm kind of cluing into things of how my thought process changed, but
Oh.
it's exactly that. It's that linear process. And I think of as I went through, elementary school, high school, I was very much always like I was always a good student, but I was
Mhm.
very much in that linear thought process of this is just what I'm supposed to do. And then I'm supposed to do this. And there wasn't a whole lot of independent thought going on there. And then I
Yes.
got to university and I started to again, I guess I always enjoyed what I studied and I enjoyed my program and the people around me. But I think that was kind of my coming out party in the sense of, like you kind of said, figuring out who I was and then what I wanted to do. So as much as I spent 3 years in university and didn't end up using that degree for anything, I think there was a huge change from a personal perspective of who I was, what I wanted to do in life, and kind of coming out through there. So I think there was a huge aspect of it that I think made me feel pretty good about, hey, I got what I needed out of that. It maybe wasn't that piece of paper, but I got, what I needed personally out of that.
Interesting. So I find that to be a really, well, I guess to reuse the exact same word I just said, interesting point, because I see some talk these days about, is college really worth it? Now in Canada, I think it's a
Mhm.
little bit easier because you don't have the United States pricing problem, to the best of my
Yeah.
knowledge. Unlike if you, as you were saying, you listen to the Bushy interview. Yeah, we both living in the States, look at college, we're like, okay, look, at the cheapest it's going to be is $30,000. Uh, Overall, a ton of scholarships, and a lot of times you can go for hundreds of thousands plus into debt just getting your education. USA, there's this talk of, hey, is that really worth it? Is there better structures? But I also point to like your story, the experience, and there is a lot of value in just having a place to kind of spread your wings because you're coming out of this linear system. Now you have more responsibilities. Your parent or parents aren't going to be lecturing you to go to class every day. They aren't picking your classes. You get there, you say, what do you want to study? All of a sudden you have a lot of freedom. Still you have the requirements here, there, but you get flexibility. And you have opportunities to do things outside of your classes as well. And you start to figure out what independent thought is supposed to be like. And you went to a bold conclusion, right? You said, actually, you know what? I'm going to leave one of the most like noble predetermined paths possible, because doctors are regarded as these godlike saints
Mhm.
where you save people's lives, and everybody likes people who saves other people's lives, and you leave. You have this independent thought. I love that. So how did you, at that point, you're leaving college, how did you really sit down and say, these are my skills, I should do sales?
Yeah, so it was interesting because I was kind of at that point where I've got this piece of paper. I was working in retail and I had worked the same retail job pretty much my entire uh, schooling. Like I had been
Okay,
there for about 5 years. So
nice.
I sat down and I said, okay, you know what? What do I like doing? What have I done? What do I want to do? And I was like, well, I've worked in retail a whole lot. That's customer service and sales. Seems to be something I'm good at. It's something I like. So why not kind of continue in that direction? And so I started doing my research and I looked up all kinds of opportunities online and things, and I found every one of those crummy sales jobs that's like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
come in and we'll pay you just commission and you'll have no base salary and here's a phone book, good luck kind of thing.
Yep.
And I thought to myself, I don't have the slightest semblance of a business background, so maybe I need more than that. And I ended up stumbling across a company that I got referred to by one of my sister's friends, actually,
Okay.
that,
Got a refer.
takes it upon themselves to train people. It literally, I felt like the company was made for me.
Mm-hmm.
They typically like people with a bachelor's degree just because that means you applied yourself to something and you got through it, not because you have
Yes.
any specific knowledge, but you have some sort of, ability to complete something. And they don't care if it's in, we had people with history masters and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they just come in and, hey, we'll give you the training necessary. And I kind of ended up stumbling across that, but it just seemed to line up so nicely with what I had done, what I was hoping for, and just kind of started that path.
Interesting. That's one of the paradoxes of college where for me, I got in the finance of an international relations degree
Yeah.
because of that same logic. Companies these days, pick your degree, but it's very much just hey, can you sit down and actually apply yourself to something, show that you can actually study, do work that
Mhm.
might be monotonous at times, and get through it, because in the working world, it might not be as interesting. You might love your job, a lot of people don't. But can you get through grueling work that you don't like? And a degree is kind of a big yes, it's like a yes card. Like, yes, I can prove to you I can get through it, and this is the GPA. So I'm smart enough to put through maybe work I don't love at this level. Now, if you love your work and you want to become like a professor or something, it gets hyper competitive because nobody wants, like everybody wants it. So the competition's fierce.
Yeah.
Sales is interesting because sales, you have to prove yourself. So just like in finance, there's licensing. For sales, it's how much are you selling a month, and if you're not good enough, you're gonna get eliminated. In both those industries, you can prove yourself. If you make it, you make it. You don't, you don't. But there are lots of ways to apply any degree once you get it. How did you make that adjustment though? It sounds like you were good at talking. You have this retail background, but sales is cutthroat. I'm afraid of sales. I don't know if I ever want to do sales. Also, it's a lot of the sales jobs are terrible, cold calling and stuff like that. Tell me about your first experience making it in this sales industry, because it sounds like you're there today. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. I'm still in sales. I manage a team. I've changed companies since, but I spent 10 years at it's a recruitment company. So basically I was selling recruitment services to other companies.
Interesting. Okay.
And so getting into it, and like you were saying, it's kind of a scary thing because you get into it and you say to yourself, I'm going to have to cold call all day. I'm going to get told no all the time. All this is going to go on. And so as funny as it is, when we're talking about education and all that, I kind of went back to my science background and did everything very kind of analytically. So I looked at it and said, all right, if I need to, bring in, because it was a recruitment company, I need to bring in X amount of open positions a week to be able to close X amount of positions a week to be able to make X amount of dollars. And that's what would have me hit my number. So let me work backwards. I need to make X amount of cold calls, because I know if I make 100 cold calls a week, I'll be able to book 15 meetings a week. And out of those 15 meetings, I know 5 will turn into positions, and 5 positions will turn into 3 closed positions. And those 3 closed positions will hit me my goal.
Makes sense.
And that's how I always worked it in my head, because it made it much more manageable. I think that sales is scary because the output is so important. But if you just want to say, oh, I need to hit this number, it doesn't mean anything. You can make 1 phone call, get lucky and hit it, or you can make 100 phone calls and not. But if you have something strategic in place, over time, the numbers will kind of even themselves out.
That makes sense, right? Eventually, right? If it's just like kind of flipping a coin, if you flip a coin one time, you might say, oh, it comes up heads 100% of the time. You flip it 100,000 times, you'll see a beautiful bell curve right on the 50%. And same kind of concept, do your 100 or 1,000 cold calls a week. I have no idea how crazy you were about them and what it's like. But if you do enough of them, you'll start to get that bell curve as they extrapolate your results over a year or 6 months, quarters, however they were structuring it. Say, oh, yeah, Chris is hitting all the benchmarks. I like it. So how did you get over do you have any fear of cold calling? I used to work at a startup where one of my bosses, didn't have to do cold calling. And cold calling is the most single, ruthless, and difficult way to sell on so many levels. Because you're picking up a phone, you're calling up someone who might like your recruitment services, which means another company, and you have to go from, you might not know me, to, hey, we should get a meeting sometime. And you're starting with nothing. You're just literally a pest. And then you have to convince them that you're actually a godsend. Do you have any fear? Do you have any strategies? How did that all come together?
Yeah, so a lot of fear for the first 6 months, even probably, maybe even a little bit longer than that. And at first, you just kind of tell yourself, well, this is a means to an end. If I want to keep my job and I want to be successful, I just have to do it. And then over time, through repetition and through practicing, you start to get better at it, and you start to kind of understand the strategies, and you start to understand, how can I make this be more fun? How can I make this be more efficient and effective?
Yes.
And the first thing I started doing, and it's something I've learned in my career, and I've taken it to just about everything I do, is find people who are better than you at what it is you need to do, and go hang out with them.
Love it.
And that's literally what I did. I found whoever cold called the most in the office, whoever was the best at it, I'm going to sit next to you, and I'm going to cold call with you all day long. And it's exactly how it played out. First of all, it's more fun because now you're like going back and forth. And if you get shut down on the phone, you like put the phone down, and you can, bitch to the person next to you about how much of a pain in the ass that person was.
Yep.
But then, like, strategy wise, it just came down to like, hey, I want to meet with you. When are you available?
Mm-hmm.
Because right away, in a perfect world, they say yes and you get your meeting and you just cold called somebody in 5 seconds and got a meeting. Fantastic. And if they say no, they're going to typically tell you exactly why. No, we don't
Mm-hmm.
use your services. Okay, cool. Now I can ask you a question about that and I can get right into whatever the issue is that you don't want to. And sometimes you realize it's not a fit, and sometimes you realize they just don't understand or they're just don't want to talk to you, whatever the case may be. But just it put me into a situation where I know right now what the situation is and I can address it and I can attack it and I can figure out what the result's going to be. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's a no, I just put it down and do it again.
Yes. And so it sounds like a lot of call. If they shut you down completely clean, fine, move on. Probably a dead lead anyways. If they object but give you a reason, hey, maybe got some wiggle room. Start to unwind it, unpack it, see if it's gonna work out. That
Work
takes
with
so
reasons.
much skill. That takes so much skill. I worked in a call center, so people at my finance job would call in. That's very different, right? They're ready to
Yeah.
engage. They might not like me, but they are ready to engage. And then they have to go from the state of probably not liking you and have no interest in engaging until you say, look, here's a problem for you that you probably have. And once you confirm it, here's the solution. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. And you must have been very good. You're still in sales.
I mean, it took me a little while to get my bearings, probably a little bit more than most. And thankfully, I
Mm-hmm.
had an environment and a group of people and a boss, more importantly, that were understanding and supportive and worked with me to get to where I needed to be. And then once
Mm-hmm.
I got there, I'd like to think that I'm pretty good at sales. I've, won some awards in my previous company. I hit my goals, all that kind of stuff. So,
Oh,
yeah, I think in sales, you have to carry a certain amount of confidence as well, because if you do
yes.
pick up the phone to cold call somebody and you think, I don't even know if I can help this person, then you're probably already screwed before you get started. So, yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
big part of it for me is, walking around saying, hey, I'm good at this. This is what I do for a living, and I
Mm-hmm.
can make an impact on businesses and people's lives. So what's there not to love about that?
Yeah, no, and I love that. Or there was a really terrible book on sales I once read. It was one of my 3 least favorite books I think I've ever picked up.
Okay.
But it had one good sentence in it, and it was basically saying, look, sales is a great job in the sense of you have a product that can improve someone's lives. As long as you believe in the product, you say this will help people. Selling it to them is really a noble task. It's saying I'm going to make your life better. And so just
Hmm.
I need to explain to you and get through your head why it's going to be better if you buy this product. And
Hmm.
yeah, I have a lot of respect for that. Especially if you're going in each day saying I'm going to call these people, and the people who say yes are going to love this. And of course, you're not trying to just sell to everyone. You're going to say, "Oh, are you a bad fit? Yeah, we're both going to move on. You're not going to like it. We're not going to like you." When you find something good fit, you get on them. You get them, say, "Look, I'm going to make your life better." Really good.
Some
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get the best reaction by telling somebody no. You call them
Mm-hmm.
and say, I've got this service to offer you, or now I've got this product to offer you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, this is my reality. Yeah, okay. I don't think this is a good fit for you. Oh, okay. It's very refreshing for them, because a lot of times you think of that used car salesperson that's just trying to jam the car down your throat,
Yes.
take it no matter what. But, being able to do that helps you build a relationship with that person, and you get referrals, and they talk to you about other people, and talk to you about other companies. The last company I worked at used, maybe you should call this person. So you get so much more out of it just by being that honest person who actually cares and is sympathetic to them and empathetic and wants to help them.
Yes, I completely agree. I think especially that used car salesman comes to mind. People trying to peddle you crap. But sales can be one of the most ethical jobs out there. Just their sole task of getting someone a good product is incredible. And if you don't believe in your
Huh?
product, you shouldn't be at that company anyways. They won't be that successful. Most of them.
Exactly.
I mean, Herbalife exists, but that's a little bit different. ah,
Yes.
yeah, I know, right? But so you continue that. You're now, and also I want to say I love that how humble you are. Like, oh, I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay at sales. I've only won a couple awards from my company along the way here, there. Like, oh, I'm so humble. I just want
I
to
think
say,
that's a Canadian thing. I'm going with that. I'm going
ah,
with it being a Canadian thing, that
all
we're
right,
really not good at bragging. Very, very humble as a people.
interesting. Well, that's nice. I am not that. I'm not. And when you asked me if I was good at like my finance job, like, yeah, no, I won department wide recognition. I got my awards. I did great. I was one of the best. There's no shame here. Maybe it's just a Canadian thing. I'm all about the lay the cards on the table. Just make sure you can back it up. But you can because you have the awards if you want to
There you
hop
go.
on that
I can whip
more.
them out.
Yeah, you gotta put a little shelf in behind you, a little shelf, make it intimidating.
100%. I need to work on that.
Yeah, I got instead of the white void that I can have a green void. What can I say? So shifting, let's actually, do you have any advice for someone who's actually interested in sales? Because I know actually a number of people are. If you can sell, you can make a ton of money. Sales is an incredible career. Sell the right thing with the right commission, you do great. Actually, before we adjust over to streaming and casting and stuff in that realm, do you have any advice for people getting into sales?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we talked about already. I think you need to find the right organization that is offering a service or a product that actually interests you and you feel passionate about, that you feel is important, because otherwise you're just doing it for the money at the end of the day. And
Yep.
yeah, sales is an incredibly lucrative career and there's a lot of opportunity to make really good money, but if it's all about that, you're not going to do it. You're not going to get up from, those people shutting you down every day. You're not going to get through that. So it's finding the right organization and the right product that you're passionate about, finding an organization that will support you and help you, because there are companies out there that will, yeah, okay, here's your phone book, make 1,000 cold calls a week. And if you don't hit this number, we're just going to kick you out the door. And
Yeah.
that is just not beneficial for anybody. So it's really finding the right fit where you can flourish, and then just going into it for the right reasons. At the end of the day, you have to want to do the job. You have to be ready to get back up after you get shut down over and over again. You have to want to. For me, a lot of my success also came from self-development, from reading books and taking time to watch videos and to, ask for a lot of help and find mentors and all that. So there's a lot of work behind the job that isn't just what I'm doing in my 9 to 5 of harassing people all day long.
I love that. And because that's very, very, very true. If you want to get ahead, none of the top performers are sitting there in any, not just sales, but any industry. None of them are sitting there 9 to 5, going in, doing their day to day, and then leaving. They have an interest in what they're doing. They want to maximize their results. And I would read business and finance books all the time when I worked in finance, and startup books when I worked in the startup, and when I worked at a startup. Having an interest in what you do is key. That'll help you get through those extra hours, because it'll change from this is work to this is something I enjoy.
Yep.
So you want to be able to
Exactly.
read those sales books. Are you familiar with Dan Kennedy? Long shot.
I'm not.
Oh,
No.
okay. Good. I thought maybe good sales
Right.
author.
I'm writing it down.
No worries. I got him from somebody we'll talk about later. I think it was Devin Nash who was talking about him.
Okay.
Who we'll discuss later on in the interview, since we share an overlapping interest of that creator in particular.
Well, it was funny when you were
Mhm.
we were on stream before, you were on stream before, I mentioned that little hint. I was like, I don't want to check. I don't want the answer. I want to like look through my list of my discords that I belong to, and I want to see if I can guess. And that was my guess.
That
It
was it.
was Devin
Yep.
Nash. Just from the way you've been talking about streaming and what you do and through your other interviews and stuff. It's like that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. No, that, and also you're familiar with Harris Heller, who we'll discuss as
Yeah.
well. So it'll be
Sounds
fun.
good.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. We'll get there. We'll get there though. Gotta, a little bit of foreshadowing. Ooh.
Of course.
Anyways. uh, so I love that you're reading. Do you have any recommended books or something for people interested in sales, YouTube, whatever videos, whatever you recommend, resource wise?
So, anything business related, I really like Jim Collins. Jim
Okay.
Collins? I feel like I'm blanking on the name now. No, it's Jim Collins. So, Good to Great
Mm.
is a pretty standard book that a lot of businesses will talk about reading and things like that. But Good to Great, he does the math. And again, I think it's my science background kicking in. So he
Mhm.
goes back and looks at, I forget how many companies he studied, but they had a whole team of researchers and looked at over a 10-year span which companies went from successful to ultra successful,
Mhm.
successful to just in the toilet, and then which ones just kind of hung in the
Yeah.
middle. And it was really interesting, a lot of the notions he takes away from it, talking about companies that went from, hey, I've got a product and I'm not innovating because this product is so good, and then they end up in the toilet.
Yep.
And then you have other companies that, hey, I have this product and it's so good, and I actually shouldn't be innovating. I should be doubling down on this one because this is our core business and this is what we need to do. And they're
Mhm.
ultra successful. So just going back and looking at the actual numbers, and then he tracks it even back to where some of those numbers changed and where the jump happened, because he'll look at stock prices and things and like,
Mhm.
okay, November of whatever 2001, this company went, increased 50%. What happened? Where can we look back at the financials and see what decisions were made, what changed? So I think it's so interesting because it's very factual. A lot of Not a lot of
Mhm.
business books. Some business books are more of, hey, this is my story. I'm going to tell you about what happened with me and what I did. And that worked in that given
Mhm.
context, that given company, that given situation. But I think it's so interesting that, Jim Collins went and looked across a large variety of companies,
Mhm.
different industries, different sizes, and then just map their success and kind of went back to get some takeaways.
No, yeah, I think a lot of business books are a little cheesy. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so great. We had this crisis and then I resolved it and I had this brilliant idea and it was brilliant. Here's my success story. And it's almost like 200 pages of somebody just bragging about how great they are. But the best business books I find are definitely ones that go either the extra mile. So Jim Collins sounds like a great example of this, going extra analytical, or if somebody is a big deviant, where you read what they do and you say, I
Mhm.
disagree with 50 to 70% of what you say, but that 30% might be brilliant and
Yeah.
I can apply it. Those are my favorite types of business books. And it's also why I think when I listen to different speakers, I'm assuming you're familiar with Warren Buffett and Jack Ma.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I love hearing Jack Ma speak more than Warren Buffett. Because when I hear Warren Buffett speak, I'm like, oh, it's so smart with his investing and business. It all makes sense. When I hear Jack Ma speak, I'm like, okay, look, you sound insane. But like, if somebody listening to this is unfamiliar with Jack Ma, this Warren Buffett, I'm gonna assume everyone's familiar with. We're talking Berkshire Hathaway, one of the largest companies in the world, brilliant investor. Owns huge stakes in Coca-Cola, owns Fruit of the Loom, owns Geico, owns gigantic railway company, energy company, owns everything. Second largest real estate company in the United States. I mean, Berkshire Hathaway is this conglomerate, and I think everyone knows that. But not many people, I think, know Jack Ma. This is Alibaba. This is Ant Financial. These are hyper innovative companies in China that operate on like a whole different level and structure than we do in the United States. People compare Alibaba to Amazon. It's not a perfectly fair comparison. They have very different business strategies. Same with Ant Financial, which is like doing microloans to billions of people around China, or billion plus around China, and is able to calculate credit scores without existing credit history just by looking at your social network and such. Terrifying stuff. It's brilliant. It's wild how he approaches things. But his lack of background in education, he struggled to get through college. His education story is wacky. So when he talks, his ideas are insane. But when he hits something, you're like, huh, I never thought about that. It resonates strongly. I love, yeah,
And
go for it.
no, I was gonna say completely agree with you because I think somebody like Warren Buffett you listen to and you're
Hmm.
like, okay, Warren Buffett, you could give me a checklist of things I need to do and to follow, and I would have like a kind of okay successful investment portfolio or whatever he's
Hmm.
talking to you about
Yep.
business in general. Whereas Jack Ma, I think you go into it and it's kind of one of those things where he's giving you the crazy ideas that ran through his brain and then
Hmm.
what caused him to be like, this one, we need to go for it.
Yes.
Whereas I can identify with that more because as I'm sitting here thinking about different things, I want help in building a structure to help me vet my crazy ideas. That's what I
Hmm.
want. Versus just play it safe and go with these things because this is going to be successful.
100%. Yes. And that's the difference, right? Jack Ma is that insanity, that madness, that in that madness, you find the brilliance. And your goal is to surround yourself with people that can turn these wacky ideas, help you shed your madness and turn them into brilliant ones. And that reminds me of how you are also pairing up in the sales company, surrounding yourself with better people who know a lot. Those are the people you want to be getting our ideas to and seeing their reaction. Now, sometimes you're gonna have to look and be like, you're too much playing it too safe here. I think my crazy idea will work. But a lot of times you're just trying to get those ideas out, vet them a little bit, narrow down to the crazy ideas that might work, and go for it. And
Exactly.
yeah, and Buffett though, yeah, you play it safe, right? It's a checklist of, oh, here's how you do it, and you'll have a great career, but you'll never get that level up, that big
Yeah.
step forward. Whereas Jack Ma, that approach, that madness, if you embrace that, you might find that big step forward, or you might crumble. But that's part of the risk if you stop
I
playing it
was
safe.
just gonna
Mhm.
say exactly the same thing.
Yeah, no, business is fascinating. Yeah, and it applies to everything. I think it's really key for people who are sitting there saying, "Oh, it's just business investing." No, no, this is careers. This is your life. You can play it really safe, or you can deviate. And deviating is the hard part. And you already had, Chris, a really early deviation, right? You got to the end of your education. You're like, "Oh, you know what? I'm deviating. I'm deviating off the noble, surefire path for a great career of a doctor, and I'm going to YOLO it on my own abilities. I've been doing retail. I'm going to go into sales." And you take that risk. You go into the madness instead of going for the nice linear path that guarantees you a house. If you want kids or to get married, that happens too. You retire, you have a nice car, and you call it a day. You deviate. Not that you're not going to still get those in sales if you want it, but you definitely went to a more cutthroat field where people burn out and fail all the time. Sales is not necessarily a nice, gentle place, especially at some companies, as you alluded to. So I have a lot of respect there.
And I appreciate that. Thank you. And it's interesting because that's in a sales organization, that is the picture they will paint for you, right? Is you're going to come in, you're going to be super successful, and you're going to live on a street. And everybody else is going to be doctors and lawyers, and you're going to have your nice car, and you're going to have all of that. That is,
Yep.
that is the picture that they paint without talking about, the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. So I think it's so interesting that they throw that out there. And being a doctor, like that's up here. That's what, if you can have a life just like a doctor's life, but be in sales,
Yep,
you've succeeded. Like what?
Yeah, and I think it's really ironic because doctor is such a safer path, and you were almost able to do that safety, but you said this isn't for me. I'm gonna go into the madness, and you sound like you're very successful, but you did that jump.
It was just one of those things where you look at it and you decide. And I mean, for me, it was really just the fact that, like, I just don't want to be in school at that point. And I never had a problem with school, and I always did fairly well. I just don't want to do it anymore.
Yep.
I want to take that leap, and I want to go out there and just kind of like what you said. I'm gonna bet on myself that I have the skills and I have the drive that I can do it. And then hey, I built a pretty successful career out of it, because I did get my house and my nice car and my fiance and all that. So I think I did okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's working for you. You went into the madness and you succeeded. So let's pivot over to streaming a little bit, because I think it's a really interesting place to be, because you stream a fair bit. You have some core members that follow you. I can see your viewership go up and down, up and down. How did you get into streaming originally? And then I want to, from there, probably expand into casting. Let's start with streaming. How did you start streaming?
So thanks to COVID, I had a lot of free time. I definitely think there was probably a spike in streamers around that time.
Yes.
But I was
part of that.
working from home. I had all the equipment because I had the mic and the camera for all the Zoom calls and all that kind of stuff. And so one of my best friends actually is Flake. We grew up together. And
really?
Flake and I met in elementary school. We were probably like 6 years old or so.
Serious? That's crazy.
Yeah. So I grew up with Flake, and obviously watching him stream and watching him on Twitch and all that. I was like, not that Flake isn't phenomenal at what he does, don't get me wrong.
Ooh.
I was like, man, I think I could do that.
Yep.
I've got all the equipment for it. I have the same love of, especially card games, because literally that's what we played growing up together. Like, I could do this. Funny side note, I actually started by streaming Hearthstone very briefly. But I had the time. Hearthstone was just an RNG fiesta, so I was happy. I made the switch to Gwent.
Not as much fun to play.
Yeah, and also a completely different category when you're talking about Twitch and the, I don't know how many thousands of people stream Hearthstone versus the Gwent community being completely different. But
yes,
we can talk about that as well.
Sure.
But for me, it was a question of, I'm here, I'm at home, going through this whole COVID thing where everybody's got nothing else to do and can't leave the house. And my fiance worked for Air Canada, so Canada's largest airline, and thankfully she has stayed gainfully employed throughout this whole thing. But they really laid off a lot of people. So to cover for a lot of what was going on, they had adjusted a lot of her shifts. So instead of doing the normal Monday to Friday thing she was before, now she was alternating weeks, working mornings and working evenings.
Okay.
So literally Monday to Friday, I'm sitting at home, like playing video games anyway. She's at work. I might as well stream, see what happens.
Like it. And so,
that's how we started streaming Hearthstone.
Okay, I dig it. Let me ask you. You mentioned you ended up with an abundance of time during this. Tell me a bit about. Was it because you were doing your sales role at home? Did you get laid off, or tell me more about that?
No, so I was working the whole time. I work for. I actually now sell software, so it's actually an HR technology to help companies manage their people, but you're in a situation where most companies you are calling are laying people off. So, throughout the day, I mean, I'm still working, I'm still doing my job. It's not super busy. So, if I slack off a little bit here and there, it's okay. But a big part of that actually was the fact that I also had Twitch open on kind of my second screen while I was working all day. Some people were listening to music or doing whatever. I had Twitch open because why not? So watching either Flake stream or watching other streamers do their thing. So I kind of had that on in the background. And then, like I said, at night, I finish work at 5. And guess what? I'm in my office at home in front of my computer at 5. I don't have to travel. I don't have to commute or do any of that. So I got the time. I'm home. I'm literally a lot of the time waiting for my fiance to come home from work a couple hours later. So I'm playing video games anyway.
Yep.
Why not just broadcast it?
I like it. I also think you did a nice job with the commute time is fascinating to me because everyone basically, if you were able to keep your job through the pandemic and or in now, of course, as well, because a number of people still are trying to get work again, the commute saves a lot of time. You probably save a minimum of an hour a day. I was saving an hour and a half a day before I quit my job, which is fine. Quitting a job during a pandemic, probably not normal plans, but it is what I did. But it's the abundance of time for that extra half hour and that extra stress off of you. You can sleep, get more sleep if you need it. Using it productively was really humbling. Some people thrived with that extra time, and some people just watched more TV and suffered. And they were like, what am I doing with this extra time? And I love that you found a way to apply it and try something new. So, I like that you're welcome. You're watching Flake. Yeah, Flake. And Flake, of course, big on card games as well, as we saw in the previous interview with him on Behind the Streamer. And then you go into streaming. How was that transition? You start streaming Hearthstone. That had to be a really tough one because, as you mentioned, it's a very different category than Gwent. It's much bigger, much harder to get discovered. How was your time streaming that?
So it was pretty brutal, to be honest. It was fun at the beginning because you've got that ability to go out there and just do something in a category that exists, and you can just kind of, if you make mistakes, nobody noticed because nobody's watching you. So I got my average of like 5 viewers because I convinced family and friends to tune in and watch me and do my thing. But it was, like I mentioned before, kind of applying that, I'm going to find people who do it better, and I'm going to go look elsewhere and try and understand what the best way to go about this would be. And it's interesting because Hearthstone has a tool where people share net decks and all that kind of stuff, but they have an interesting functionality on it where there's a button that basically allows you to find people on Twitch who are playing these meta decks.
Ooh, fancy. Okay.
I was like, okay, wait, if I play this deck that's on this website and it's one of the top decks and people want to see people play it, they can click on this button and they're going to get brought to me. Let's do that.
I like
so, I was just looking for creative ways to get views. But the thing is, even if you end up with, let's say 50 viewers, which in Gwent is a pretty comfortable amount that you can get to. I don't want to say fairly easily, but you can get to 50 viewers. It's not terrible.
Yes.
But in Hearthstone, you're still scrolling down that page to find yourself.
Yep.
So nobody's going to stumble upon you. And then then I need to do the YouTube thing and I need to be engaged here and there in different communities and all that kind of stuff. And I was getting a little bit tired of it too, because Hearthstone is an RNG fiesta. So you play games and you end up losing them because of through no fault of your own and just somebody high rolling something. So I was looking for something different to play. And obviously I'm watching Flake and I'm watching him play Gwent. And I have no idea how Gwent really works anymore because I played it in closed beta like 3 or 4 years ago or something.
Yep. And Homecoming overhauled the whole game.
Yeah, exactly. And I had stopped a little bit before Homecoming, and then when I saw Flake streaming it, I was looking at it being like, I don't even recognize this game. I don't know what's going on. And just kind of let it go. But when I got back to the streaming bit, like, you know what? It would be cool to relearn Gwent, if for nothing else than to just understand what Flake's doing when I watch him stream more than anything else. So we started doing co-ops on a stream on Sundays. And basically we did, I think, like one a week for, I guess, 6 weeks, because we covered each faction and just learned to play the game together. So obviously that helped me because that was a lot more eyeballs that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and they came over to my channel. And so in between, I'd still stream Hearthstone, and chat was just like, okay, when are you streaming Gwent? I want to watch you play Gwent. When are you playing Gwent? I was like, well, then I guess I should be playing Gwent.
I like that. Go with the flow.
I mean, hey, if chat wants it and they're going to watch me play Gwent, then like, why not? And Gwent for me was just a much more strategic game that I kind of fell in love with because it's completely different than any other game out there. Games are mostly life totals and mana costs and all that. And this just completely flips it on its head into something totally different. So I really enjoyed the game. And obviously when you're streaming and, for yourself streaming it very much full time, or even for me, just streaming it a couple days a week after I work, I want to do something I enjoy. Because if I go from working an 8-hour day to going and feeling like I'm streaming 4 or 5 hours of work again, like I'm going to lose my mind and possibly burn myself out.
Yeah, especially in your case, I think at this point, sounds like you're a manager now, so you're probably done with the cold calling. Is that true?
Oh, no. There's still that. So I know you were talking about startup life in one of your previous interviews with Denpai, actually. So we're backed by a larger organization, but we're still kind of in startup mode. So I am a manager who
Uh,
also does all the sales
yeah.
stuff as well because you wear all the hats.
You do wear all the hats. Interesting. Getting the backing, but yes, even if you have backing, you can still run an idea or division as a startup. And so, yep, if
Yes,
you're
exactly.
in that case, yeah, you have all the hats. Interesting. Yeah, doing calls and going to streaming was tough. I tried when I was working in a call center at the finance job. I started flirting around with streaming a little bit. Was streaming actually Darkest Dungeon, and I got burnt out so fast. I love Darkest Dungeon. I just couldn't stand talking for 8 hours a day, coming home and talking for another three. I, at that point, did not want to talk to anybody as an introvert. But I give you a lot of credit for being able to do cold calls, coming back, and then streaming. Oh my goodness, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it at all.
But it helped me in the sense that because I was working from home, I wasn't engaging with my colleagues all day. I wasn't doing a lot of that
Mm,
other social stuff that
yes.
would be otherwise. So for me, it was a bit of a social outlet too, which was kind of good.
Interesting.
It's also ironic because I'm also an introvert, so the fact that I would be talking all day and talking all day at home and talking all day
Uh-huh.
on Twitch and all that is kind of weird. But for me, it was just the engaging with other people that weren't, potentially going to shut me down on the phone with me. So it was just a different mentality that could come and
Mhm.
again kind of relax more and let loose, and that just felt like a really nice way of coming down from my day.
Mhm.
Though don't get me wrong, there were some days where I was like, I'm not streaming today because if I have to talk to another human being, like I'm gonna lose my freaking mind. But yeah, for the most part, I thought it was a nice kind of just balance for me to change the interactions I was having more than anything else.
Yeah, and it's also a bit much more positive one, as I think you're alluding
Oh,
to.
totally.
Because cold calls can be brutal, and coming home and having a bunch of people watching you who want to watch you and engage with you it feels so much better than getting
So
told
much.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so you get over to Gwent, and what you did it because you're interested in Flake, you're testing the waters, it's going well, and from what I can tell, it really becomes the core game of your channel. Is that something you're
Yeah.
happy with?
Yeah, absolutely. It became the core game of choice for me on my channel. And then it was funny because then chat starts bugging me about, well, you've never played the Witcher games, and I'm a card game guy more than I was anything else. So it
Same.
was like, yeah, I should play the Witcher games. So I eventually I started playing those. I started dabbling in other card games as well.
Hmm.
So I had been playing Mythgard for a long time. So I played some Mythgard. Cards, which is a World
Hmm.
War II CCG, had been released on Steam not too long after I started streaming, so I toyed in that a bit. But I think,
Hmm.
and you've alluded to it in previous interviews too, the fact that in Gwent, the opportunity to grow is there
Hmm.
more so than some of the other games I had played that had a
Yes.
little bit of a smaller player base. So, I do want that positive interaction. I want to come home and I want people to actually be watching me and to be there in chat. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it gets to be a little bit of a rush when you get home and you're at home, but you go and you start streaming and people are actually watching and tuning in, and you get this high of like, oh,
Hmm.
people actually want to watch this. And then you go play another game and like four people tune in, not
Yes.
because you're not, even a good streamer or people don't want to watch you, just there's like seven people watching the whole category. So for me, it was like, yeah, I like Gwent. I enjoy the game. I really enjoy the community. I
Hmm.
honestly very rarely, every once in a blue moon, find a troll somewhere, but for the most
Hmm.
part, everybody's very wholesome and just wants to hang out and
Hmm.
interested in the game. So like, yeah, it was kind of the perfect storm of everything falling into place. And this is a great game I enjoy. The community is something I also enjoy, and I'm really happy here.
Yeah, I love the Gwent community. I also love how there's kind of like circles in the place. Like here are all the wholesome streamers. We all share viewers. So right, I was on your stream yesterday, just kind of chilling in your chat. I'm like, oh, I recognize you. I recognize you, and it's really awesome. I love that the
Yeah.
Gwent community is all supporting each other. It has all these core people hopping around. Like you're a classic human being. You're a classic, and it's a wonderful place to be. It's very supportive, really welcoming to new streamers. Now, is it fair to
Yeah.
say for you that streaming is more of a hobby than something you'd want to ever pursue as a full-time career?
Yes. And it was funny you mentioned Harris Heller before, and
Mm-hmm.
and we may talk about him more later. But he said something interesting in one of his either streams or videos, or I think he actually repeats it often because people ask him this question all the time, like, should you quit your job and go into content creation full time? And his answer is always, if you have nobody else relying on you and you have no responsibility and you can do it, and you have, a budget in mind, and you have the finances to support yourself and all of that, then go for it. Exactly.
Yep.
Now, if I did that and my bank started knocking at my door wanting my mortgage payment, it would be a whole other story. And I
Yes.
also, I'm not going to be able to ask Caitlin to support me as much as I
Hmm.
would love to. So, yeah, for me, honestly, right now, it's very much that hobby that I enjoy doing. And you know what? It's also nice because, and as an example, and if you were looking at my stats, you know that for the past month I've probably streamed like twice.
Yep.
I was pretty regular, streaming 2 or 3 times a week, plus doing an event here or there and things like that. And you know what? The last month we've had a lot of things to do with the house and all of that, and I just didn't stream much.
Hmm.
And because I'm not relying on it for any type of income, it felt fine.
Yeah.
And I came back yesterday and I was like, you know what? I'm really happy to be back and I'm really happy to be streaming because I came back refreshed. And that's the most important part for me because like you said, if it's going to be a hobby, I want it to be a positive experience and I want to enjoy myself. And if it becomes a grind, then I'm probably not loving it and then I'm probably not, necessarily something that I want to keep doing. And I don't want it to get to that point because I very much enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I love that in terms of knowing your risk, where you are in life, and then adjusting it, what you can do
Mhm.
to that risk. And that's something I was really bad at for a long time. I played it way too safe. But as I was pointing out to myself, as you said exactly too, I'm in that category of I have no responsibilities, I have money, I have budget, and I'm like, whatever. When I just YOLO, right? I'm young,
Yep.
and I can do that. And then when I hit 29, 30, I'll have to really sit down and say, all right, John, if you failed this, hopefully I don't. I intend not to. I intend to succeed. I'm very driven towards that. But if I do fail, it's like, all right, age 29, 30, I have to suck it up, eat my spoonful of humble juice or whatever it is, and have to decide, all right, John, do you want to keep pursuing this path? Do you want to go, or do you want to go back to being a much more standard path? Secure the car, the spouse, the kids, the house.
Mhm.
But I can make that choice. But in your case, you're right. You have a mortgage, you have a fiance. Streaming can just be a fun hobby, and it's a wonderful. And Gwent's a perfect place for that, right? You have a lot of
Totally.
wholesome community members who will just pop in and be like, "Oh yeah, the one Christo streaming, loving it. Let's go check out what Chris is up to."
And
So,
that's
mhm.
that's exactly it. And then, my same principle of mindset going back to, hey, what do other people do and what people do this better than me and who can I go watch and follow and interact with? And
Mhm.
I was looking at it because, I knew I wouldn't have, and I know you've talked about it before, and I think it was Bushy saying, you guys spend 60, 70 hours a week doing content creation. That is still,
Yes.
in your case, let's say building an empire. I was like, I
Mhm.
don't have time for that. But,
Yes.
I do want an opportunity to get more involved and I do want an opportunity to grow. And hey, making a couple bucks wouldn't hurt too.
Mhm.
So, I looked at different avenues and I know you mentioned casting before, and that was one of them where I said to myself, okay, if I want to cast events, and I think Flake told you the story of how he started in casting, is he literally created his own tournament so he could
Yes.
cast it.
100%.
Yeah. I was like, okay, well, I don't know that I have the drive to do that or the
Mhm.
time. I'll say time. But what
Mhm.
what can I do to get involved in that? And then 983 Media is a company that does card game tournaments.
Okay.
So they're a production company. They host them, they organize them, and all that. And they do Gwent, and they do Mythgard, and they do cards. And
Mhm.
so I was like, well, maybe I can connect with them. And I reached out to Mark Theus, who runs it, and asked him, if I could be involved. And they were looking for people just to be tournament admins.
Mhm.
So just make sure the tournament goes off without a hitch and all that. I was like, yeah, I can totally do that.
Mhm.
And got involved with that. And then yeah, that turns into, Christo, we need somebody to host this show. We need somebody to fill in to do a cast. We need some like, oh, I can do
Mm.
that. Oh yeah, I can totally do that. And then you start jumping into it and you get involved, and all of a sudden you're a caster and a host and this and that. And they even pay you to do
Mhm.
it. It's like shocking. It's
I
amazing.
know. I love that. So this is that find your avenue and sneak in. So you might not get to get the
Totally.
caster from the get go, right? Flake put in the hard work to try to skip a few levels, and that
100%.
takes guts and money and time and understanding that you're creating a lottery ticket, a good lottery ticket, but you're creating a lottery ticket effectively where you're gonna host a tournament, you're gonna cast it, and if you do a good job, you can use it as your resume. Go to the next organization, slap down, being like, look, I made an entire tournament. This many people showed up. We had these casters. I was one of them. We did a great job. Check this out. And they're like, yeah, you sound like the right person to have. In your case, though, you go and you say, look, hey, it was 983 Media. 983 Media, look, I want to help out. I really would love to get involved in this. Do you have anything? And you got tournament admin. It's probably not a job that people think of. It's really important. Every tournament has them, but it's a bit more like grunt work, the dirty behind the scenes. But because you're now in position, you got your foot in the door. hey, we didn't find the caster for this cards tournament, Miss Mythgard tournament. Much more niche games, even more niche than Gwent. Hey,
Yep.
we don't have a host. TheOneChristo is an incredible salesman, has a lot of professionalism about him. Take your traits from your job. You're showing them off at 93 Media. They're like, yeah, let's get Chris in here. Let's get Chris in here to take care of this problem we have. Make a little bit of
Yep.
money, pursue the hobby. I love that.
Yeah, and that's
Mhm.
that's literally what I mean. The story of doing that is the same as, I would approach probably most companies where, yeah, I want to work here. You knock on the door and say, like, I'll take out the trash. I don't care if it gets me a foot in the door. Like, let's do it, and then see where it leads.
Yes, and that, yeah, people should be bold, and as long as you're willing to say, look, I just want the foot in the door. It's harder for a full-time career. I give a lot of credit to King Denpai, who's somebody who time and time again seems to pull that off.
Oh my gosh.
Denpai's story is
Yes.
wild. The idea of going up to somebody and saying, I want your job, and then getting that job blows my mind. But I would be willing to do more of what you're doing, of going to a company that I would like to work for and say, look, hey, I would love to get involved. What can I do to help you? It's much easier for a part-time tournament by tournament basis, I think, than a part-time or full-time job. But you lose nothing for trying. You have everything to gain. Why not just do it? And all you have to do is
No, and I was gonna say, you have nothing to lose, and literally I built a career on getting shut down all the time. So it's very normal to me to just have somebody say no, because what's the worst? What's the worst that can happen in like 99% of situations? People just tell you no.
Yes.
Okay, move on, try again later. Like, it's not the end of the world. But I think people in general, and I know I'm generalizing, and I probably shouldn't, but just have a hard time with that, right? People in general have a hard time with rejection, and it hurts your ego and all of this. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. So, oh man, I have so many thoughts on that. Let me go through let me throw out a couple of thoughts. We're gonna go through them. First, I love what you said. I often refer to it mentally as what I call the realistic worst outcome. What is realistically the worst outcome of this? So if I get overwhelmed in a call center and someone's yelling at me, well, the worst thing that can happen is they give it to my manager. They request a manager. I can't talk them out of it. It goes to the manager. And that's it. That's it. It's the manager's problem now. I move on to the next call. I probably will never talk to that person again. Maybe with the manager on the phone, I'll help them do a transaction or two. But then within 30 minutes, they're gone forever. No matter how nasty they are, and I'll never have to think about them again. I don't even remember the names that people yelled at me. There's nothing to take personally from there. Like, the worst thing would be tracking you down, but it happens so rarely in the industry that, like, whatever. I also think you're right about people taking it personally. Feel free to generalize. This is, I think, an okay generalization. I find that it comes from schooling, where you're punished on all your mistakes, from homework, tests. So even if I take a test and I let's say I missed 3 questions, and in a month I could answer those correctly, my grade is still permanently stuck there because 3 months ago I didn't know how to do it, even though I know how to do it now. And I'm not even in the work world yet. I'm not having to apply this really anywhere yet. I know the skill, but you still carry those wounds with you, so to speak. That punishment for not being able to get it 3 months ago. Even if you know it by the time you get to the final exam, you're still punished. Like, how dare you not know it 3 months ago and know it now for the final exam? The blemish doesn't go away, which is an interesting irony to it. And it is really personal because people are like, what are your A's and B's? And then you get to college, you have a little bit more freedom, a little more responsibility, but grades are still there. Then you graduate and get to the real world, and all of a sudden, if you personalize your failure, you get punished fast. I'm sure you're familiar with the minimum viable product model, or that idea, and trying to pursue something, put as little effort as possible into something to test the hypothesis, and that is a great way to get ahead faster. You can apply it to products. You can also apply it to self-learning and trying new approaches, new sales calls and such, new ways to calm down a client, in my case. And you're going to fail a bunch, and if you take those failures personally, you're not going to go anywhere. But if you are willing to just say, you know what? A lot of things fail all the time. It has nothing to do with me. It is life, and I'm going to face failure all the time. Then might as well embrace it. And if you're not failing enough, if you haven't failed recently, you're not trying new ideas enough. You're not being ambitious enough, in my opinion. You have to fail to find what's best. And once you figured out what's best for that, you got to expand what you're able to do. Find something else to fail at.
And I love the way you worded it when you said, what's the realistic worst outcome? Like, what in reality? Because like you said, somebody, yes, at a call center, they could curse you out and then chase you down, find you. And it's like, they're not doing that. They have better things to do. It's easy to yell at you on the phone because you're there, but they're not even gonna find you.
Nope.
And the best part about it is, like you said, okay, that's the worst case scenario. The best part, and I learned this through cold calling at least, where
Hmm.
I had a conversation with somebody and it didn't go well. And then I ended up calling them back 6 months later. And like, they don't remember who you are. That person in the call center that yelled at you could call back 3 months later. You could end up on the phone with them. You will have put them completely out of your mind. They don't
Hmm.
even know who they're talking to. Like, you can actually talk to that person again and have a lovely interaction. So,
Hmm.
yeah, what's the worst case scenario in those situations? What's the
Exactly.
worst case scenario if I quit my job and end up, going to be a full-time streamer and yeah,
Hmm.
the bank comes and takes my house? That's pretty bad. I don't want
Yes.
that.
And that is
So,
realistic. 100%.
yeah,
But
100% it is.
right, and then you wouldn't be able to cold call if you're always worried about like the true worst case scenario, because you'd be too afraid of somebody getting angry at you and tracking you down. But the realistic thing is they forget you, and in 6 months maybe you call
Totally.
them again and try again, and they don't even remember you the first time. From that time, you get a second shot. I
Yep,
think that is,
exactly.
yeah, 100. That's how you improve. I think people need to embrace failure a little more often, and I also find that in life, a lot of failure is really like a lot of paper walls. And trying to get to something you want is getting through paper walls. It's not this fortress you're trying to break into. It's just a lot of annoying things going and trying and going and trying and going and trying over and over and over. All of a sudden, you rip through 1,000 paper walls and you're like, oh, I did it. It wasn't this difficult task that needed a battering ram and a million hours to get through. It was just get up every day, give it 15, 30 minutes, slap it down, try again, and eventually you start to get closer and closer to your dream. And that to me is, well, at least that's one of the lessons I take to heart. If I want to get something done, just put a little bit of effort and you'll start seeing the momentum build. But you have to accept that a lot of those paper walls are just failure. You're going to try something, you're going to fail, you're going to get through another barrier, and you're going to rinse and repeat that 100 times.
And I think the paper walls are a great example because staring them down, you don't always know if there's 1,000 of them, 100 of them, or
Hmm.
one. Right at the
Yes.
beginning, you're very motivated, you're knocking them down and things are going well, and then you're like, wow, man, am I ever going to get there? And little do you know there's one wall left, but you're so discouraged from everything else because you've hit that wall of failure over and over,
Hmm.
where you end up giving up on the finish line. And I think that going and that's why I often say, I want to go find somebody who's better than me at this
Hmm.
and share with them, kind of get their perspective, because failing's one thing, but when you do fail, again, a lot of times that natural reaction is I need to hide my failure. I'm ashamed of
Hmm.
failing. I'm ashamed of not doing well. I need to hide that. When in reality, if you go and share that with somebody who is more
Hmm.
knowledgeable in your field, or sometimes it's somebody just as knowledgeable with a different perspective, they
Hmm.
can tell you, yeah, I've been through that before. You've only got one or two walls left. You can do this. It's
Yes.
hugely different than you just standing in front of it going, I don't know what this is, and I don't know if I'll ever get there.
Yeah, and also you can skip if you talk to people who are better, and you can skip some of the walls.
Yep.
So early on, one of the reasons I became really, really good at my job is because the first 3 months I highlighted my failures to everybody and tried to get feedback as fast as I could. And within
Yep.
3 months, people were just trying to solo it and do their job and hide their failures. They weren't getting very far. I exploded ahead of everyone else because I aired my failures. I aired my successes too. I made sure everyone knew where I was, and people wanted to help me fix my failures. People like going to people who are at the top are attracted to other people who are trying to get to the top.
Mhm.
If you want to, because the people who got to the top got there because they surround themselves by motivated people, hardworking people, and the best people. And so to stay at the top, you need to surround yourself by motivated people, hardworking people, and the best people. And the soon to be best people are people you want to surround yourselves with because they surpass you. You want to trade. You want to be pulling up climbing up their ladder instead of letting them climb up yours. It's a bit of a tit for tat. Not in an unhealthy way, in an ethical, wonderful way, where motivated people want to be surrounded by motivated, hardworking people. And so, cheat. Find the smartest people, take them out for lunch if you want to, or just ask them on occasion for help. Drive them insane if it's what it takes. Learn everything from them. And then when you're ahead, they'll come to you and be like, oh, yeah, you drove me insane for half a year, but now I think you can help me. And you help them, you give it back. And it's a beautiful relationship. That's how I found a lot of my success. Whereas people who cloistered, they fell behind. And the manager was always like, what are you doing? But I excelled because I did exactly what you did. Find the best people, surround yourself by them, ask them a million questions, and you'll catch up in no time.
And then, just like you said, at the end, you pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause that's what you need to do, and that's what builds those reciprocal relationships where, yeah, people don't think they were taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
You get, you give, and it creates this cycle of you surrounding yourself with amazing people, and then
Mhm.
building other people up to that level too. So you would just have a bigger network, a bigger social circle, more people to surround yourself with that are, at the same level as
Mhm.
you and having those same conversations and have that same mentality, which I think is huge.
Yeah, and I feel that people might think, oh, why would I build up my peers? We compete for jobs. But these are people you're going to work with potentially later in life. These are people you're going to want to network with later in life. And might as well network and work with the best possible people. I found that one of my best strengths when I worked on teams was I could figure out sometimes what other members on my team were unable to figure out about themselves. I looked at them and I said, you're really good at this. You are not acknowledging it. You're very shy. You've been very cloistered. I'm going to force you. I'm going to sweet talk my way so you do it. And then as you succeed, because I know you're going to succeed at it, I'm going to compliment you. You're going to love working together with me because you're finding success and joy in what you do. You're learning new things about yourself. And I'm feeling great because not only are you having a great experience, the whole team's doing better. And the next time we get to do group work or on a team, have a project, you're going to want to work with me because I helped you be successful. I'm going to want to work with you because you're more competent than you've ever been. And if I have another opportunity, I might be able to make you even more competent. It's just this beautiful cycle of productivity. And people who are just focused on themselves, trying to highlight themselves as I'm the leader of this, are not going to go far. You can be a leader, but lead by example, set people up for success, and then everybody's going to want to set you up for success. And that's a great way to succeed at any company.
That's the thing. And, a lot of people look at it and say to themselves, well, I can get better. Or maybe if I put some of these other people down, I'm going to look better. But you never, ever win doing that. And it's just like you said, right? You help build people up. Even in my previous role, I did that to one of my peers who ended up getting promoted before me.
Uh-huh.
And I would like to think, and I love this woman to death. She's amazing. I'd like to think that I was actually probably better at my job than she was at hers, but she had different set of skills where she was great at building relationships and she put herself in a phenomenal situation. So she gets promoted, and guess what? We have a fantastic relationship. So I have no issues with her. It's great working with her. I get, the benefit of the doubt to go and be trusted and do my thing, and I have no issues. So yes, okay, would I have rather get promoted? Sure, selfishly, but at the end of the day, I still got so much out of that because long term, it's still very beneficial for me to work with people or for somebody who thinks the world of me.
Yes, and also next time promotion comes up, hey, you have another friend in the ring who's worked with
100%.
you. You've been supportive the whole time. Like, oh yeah, Chris, maybe I got the promotion because of my relationships, but Chris might have been more qualified. I know that. I might have gotten it first, but like, let's get Chris up here. I want to work as a peer. Because it's great.
Totally.
It's like one thing to have great people working for you. It's even better to work equally with incredible people who are all supporting you.
100%.
I love that.
100%.
I love that. So, all right, jumping back a little bit, we're talking a bit about casting and how we got into those relationships and getting your foot in the door. So, casting it's probably for you still just a hobby. This is nothing you really want to build out, but it's also that kind of hobby that has a little bit of pocket change with it. Is that right?
Essentially, I mean, look, if I thought to myself of where I would be more able to make a jump if I decided to, it would probably be on the esports side of things.
Interesting.
Because getting into more of a full-time casting gig,
Mm-hmm.
I say full-time, but a more regular casting gig is a bit easier with more guaranteed cash, essentially. Whereas streaming,
sense.
obviously, you're getting paid, by people who are
Yeah,
watching you and appreciate your content. Whereas if you're on the casting side of thing, you are brought on by companies. So it makes more sense for me to focus on that side of things because there is potential there to, hey, maybe down the line that is an opportunity. Fantastic. If it isn't, it's exactly like you said. It's pocket change. It all goes into my PayPal account, and I use that to, buy more things for my streaming setup, or a new expansion comes out and I want to buy kegs, or I want to buy a new game, or whatever the case may be. It's kind of my spending money that I use, and get to keep that around, and that way my money coming in from my actual job pays for my expenses, and then the rest goes into savings.
Nice. Yeah, I like you're very effectively self-funding a hobby, yet also secretly a smoldering opportunity where if the things align just right, hey, maybe you can make a jump if you really want to. Of course, you talk to your fiance, but you might be able to make a jump and say, oh yeah, the bank isn't going to knock on my door. The risk is very different because I know I'm going to make whatever amount, and you're going to be fine. Is that so? Tell me more about. I see how you get on the casting. How do you keep getting casting gigs? Because you've actually done a fair bit of casting. You even got a Gwent R64 qualifier, which is actually really brutal to get into, because Gwent actually, in my opinion, has one of the most competitive casting scenes I've ever seen. it's a niche community, but boy, is the casting talent there. I mean, you have what? You have Shaggy, Shinmari, Flake, uh, Dia Beastie, Lionheart, Spessy, yourself. Birds is always the host. And there's also, I'm sure, one or two names which are slipping my mind. It is really, it used to be McBeard, really competitive. Yet you found your way in there. How do you actually get into, how do you keep getting into these opportunities when there's so many people gunning for them?
So, I talked about kind of working myself up from the
Mm-hmm.
bottom. So I started as a tournament admin with 983, and then they are involved with Cards and Mythgard, and both games I had played. So um, Mythgard needed a caster for their World
Mm-hmm.
Championships this year. So
Nice.
I got involved with that. And then Cards needed a host for their kind of pregame show. So I got involved with that. And all I was doing, it's like you said before, I was just building my resume. So, okay, I do this, I do this, I do this. I stream Gwent. 983 also produced with Flake and myself the Gwent trivia.
Nice.
So I got
Very
to
popular.
meet Vlad through that.
Mm-hmm.
And Vlad is the director of esports. So at the beginning of the year, when they were talking about potentially making some changes to the casters, I reached out to him and said, "Hey Vlad, like we've done this show together now. You've seen me there. You've seen me potentially stream. Here are the other games that I do. Here are some clips from all the other games that I do. Would there be a possibility? I'm open to casting with anybody. I don't care. Like, just I would love an opportunity."
Mm-hmm. I like
And
it. You got
yeah,
it.
he's like, "Yeah, no problem." It's like,
Beautiful.
"Oh, okay."
That's incredible. I love that. It's, I think it goes back to that cold calling nature of doing the ask, the sell. Hey,
Yeah.
I want to cast your game. You've already seen my work. Because you've seen the work, because I went to 93 Media, which is a small company that works with card games, and I love card games. I know card games, and I got to start doing stuff there because I went in the foot, basically put my foot in the door as a tournament admin, and I built up that criteria. Because Cards and Mythgards are much smaller games, particularly Cards is a really small game, and you built up the knowledge anyways, giving you opportunities to do things like the World Championship, and that lets you build up that resume going to a slightly bigger game like Gwent. Would this be, so let's say you wanted to cast Hearthstone, a much bigger game. Do you think you would try that same approach? Find the company or group that's working with Hearthstone's esports scene, go to them, say, "Hey, here's my background. Can I get my foot in my door doing something?" And work your way up. Would that be the strategy if you wanted to cast Hearthstone?
So I would probably throw an extra kind of step or two in between there because of
Okay.
the jump from Gwent to Hearthstone and the access to, let's say, the devs and all that on the Hearthstone side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would probably be looking for community tournaments that I could cast,
Okay.
just to be able to show them that I have casted your game before. So I'd probably look within that perspective. And then, yeah, it would be reaching out and seeing who I could network with that I know who has maybe some ties there and trying to get some introductions and things like that. But I think for a game at that level, it's a bit of a bigger jump than, let's say, the Mythgard and the Cards to Gwent. So it would definitely require probably a little bit more work on the back end before going and saying, "Hey, I want to cast this."
Tell me about how you would network. I think that's something that a lot of people
Sure.
don't understand and intimidates them, because like, how do I know people? Now, so tell me a bit about your experience with networking. I was talking about mine as well, but tell me about how you would network your way into something like that.
So the thing I find about networking is you need to be doing it from a very holistic approach of, I'm not just networking with you because I need something from you, because that
Mm-hmm.
just never really ends well. But you need to be more proactive about it, and you need to be um just doing it honestly and naturally. And something I did when I first, from day one when I started streaming, and whether that was Hearthstone or Gwent or anything,
Mm-hmm.
anytime somebody sent me a raid, I
Mm-hmm.
would personally find them on Discord and message them on Discord and say thank you. And I'm a couple months into streaming, and I'm sending, Spessy, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
sending Shinmiri, and I'm sending all the messages saying like, "Hey, how was your day? How was your stream? Thank you so much for sending it over." Just like little stuff. And then that turns into, it stops being one line and it starts being, a couple lines, and then a back and forth and a bit from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective. So it just goes down to, different conversations down that route. And then it's just who else you're involved with. So, at this point, I'm, doing stuff with Cards, and Cards director of esports. Um, I mean, I'm a little bit from, I think it comes from my sales background, but I'm a bit of like an information nerd where, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
need to know who these people are and I want to see their background. And the Cards director of esports right now used to work at Riot. So like, well, if I wanted to get involved with, maybe Runeterra or something,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I
And
go and I go that direction and I ask him about it. Like it's
mhm.
just knowing who you're talking to and understanding and just working with them honestly and going from there, you know?
Yeah, I agree with the networking thing. I would also, well, two things. One, I love that you're reaching out to people that thanking them for the raids, right? They're sharing their audience of you, bringing it over, thanking them. I know I'm not the best at that. Something actually I could probably do much better at. One person I did that for was Spiro when he raided me.
Mhm.
And then I sent him a thank you. He never responded. He rated me twice in a week. Sent him a thank you. Probably was like the only other streamer that looked good to him. And then what was nice is later on when I asked him, "Hey, can we do an interview?" It was he agreed. He was the second person to have on the show, and that blew my mind because he's the largest streamer
Yeah.
by just raw streaming amount of watch time relative to the amount of streaming hours he does relative to the number of people watching. He's by far the largest in Gwent.
Yeah.
He just agreed. He was second person on the show. I'm like, okay, this makes no sense to me. We barely overlapped, but little things like that might have helped in that. Of course, you want to have a good pitch and all that,
Yep.
but that to me is part of networking. The other part of networking is just being a good human being.
Yes.
Where as you're getting more exposed to the industry, you're meeting people who hopefully like you, and if you like them and they like you, again, we go back to that: surround yourself with people who are motivated and want to help each other. And so that go to them saying, "Hey, look, you have backgrounds in Legend of Runeterra. I'm really interested in casting. Do you know who I should be reaching out to ask about positions?" And they might say, "Oh yeah, you want to ask this person?" I don't know. They might say, "I don't know," and then it's the end of the conversation. They might say, "I don't know, but let me ask this person for you." Or they might say, "Here's the person you should ask. I know them, hence I know them by name. Let me put in a good word for you." And that is so much better. But it's about that honesty coming forth, being connected with the right people. But you do that by being excellent, by putting yourself out there into the spaces where you can actually meet these people.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, it's about being just putting your best self forward, regardless of what you're doing. And like I mentioned before, I'll start by admitting tournaments. I don't care, but you better believe I was there busting my ass every time I asked to do that. And
Yes.
doing some of these events, whether it's with Cards, Mythgard, Gwent, whatever. Yeah, some of them are paid, great. Some of them aren't paid, but again, I'm bringing the same level to
Hmm.
every one of those interactions, regardless of what the compensation is. If there is, it doesn't matter
Yes.
because if I do, want to ask for a favor down the line, well, I want them to say, you know what? If Chris goes and asks this person about an event, I know that he's going to show up. He's going to be professional. He's going to represent me well because at the end of the day, it's coming through me and he's going to do a stellar job. So you don't want there to be any doubt and you want to carry yourself like you said, just like a good human being throughout
Yeah.
any interaction you have because you never know what the future may hold.
Yeah. And people, even if you hate what you're doing originally, people are going to assume whatever effort you bring to the current job is going to be the same as the future job. Even if the current job is what you hate and the future job is the one you're most passionate about, that equivalence is just going to stay there.
Yep.
You have to bring your A game with whatever you do every time. And if you're not able to do that, you just need to find a different profession, different role as fast as possible. Because every second you're sitting in a role where you're kind of like, you're just getting by each day, you're not going to shine. So,
Exactly.
like, I found a lot of success in the call center at working at Vanguard because I would be the most positive, jubilant person on the floor, always motivated. I did
Yep.
not like my job whatsoever, but I never let that show. I was not. I in a big way was number one because everyone wanted to support me, help me, because I brought that A game, because I brought that positivity. Everyone knew I would go the extra mile, and that's why I kept getting networked around. I kept getting promoted as soon as time and job came up. That's the energy you need to bring to whatever you do to find success, especially at a quick pace. Gotta be in it. Always be in it.
Yep.
So let's go. Let me take a look at my notes real fast. So you're going from. Hold on, scrolling up. I have all notes from our conversation. Where did I want to go from here? Yeah, good. So tell me, I guess, one more question on the casting front. What do you think your
Perfect.
future is for casting? Do you think you're going to network your way into bigger games? Are you just content with the size it is right now? What are your thoughts?
So because this is more of a hobby for me, I don't know that I have planned out like future years and goals and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I always look at kind of like just what's my next step. And for me, it was,
Mhm.
getting to Gwent, let's say. So it was all right, I can do the card stuff, I can do the myth card stuff. I can do the Gwent stuff. And then hopefully I can turn this doing a qualifier into actually doing an open. That would be my
Mhm.
next goal. And then the goal that I kind of have in my mind after that is once this whole COVID thing is wrapped up, both Cards and Gwent do their events in person typically.
Mm. Okay.
So for either one of those, it would be to then get the opportunity to travel for Gwent to Poland or for Cards, the developers in Iceland. So getting a trip to go do one of these events in person would kind of be my next goal. So yeah, I'm like, I don't have delusions of grandeur where I'm like, I need to cast Hearthstone and that's gonna make me the money to quit. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't gotten there and I haven't put that much into it, but I have my little goals that I want to achieve and I want to continue to work for because I think
Mhm.
you need that to keep yourself motivated and think that, hey, once I get here, then let's kind of talk about what's next.
No, I mean, I like that. You have a hobby, might as well set goals for it, whether it's something as, ambitious as casting. And casting go a long distance. Same with something like guitar or musical instrument. You still want to have that next step, a chord you want to learn, a song you want to play. Or you could say, I want to do a full career, but you need a next step regardless in both of those. In your case, it's a hobby. You don't need to think too much about the future. Next step, do an in-person event, maybe cast the Gwent Open. Beautiful. Realistic goals, still perfectly ambitious, still an obvious next step. Something to keep in mind as you're pursuing it forward. I like it. I like it. So,
Yeah, I think you just
mhm.
need to always have some sort of drive, some sort of something to keep yourself moving forward. And I again, this might be just the sales career background of always having like a number to hit all the time. There needs to be a dollar value associated to what you're doing because that is your worth. I mean, as a person to some of these organizations, but it's just always having that and having something to work for because it's just so easy to get complacent otherwise and just
Mhm.
say like, yeah, I'd rather just sit on the couch than actually, commit to doing my next casting gig or to prepare for it or whatever the case may be.
We're back after short break. You were just telling me as we are coming back from the break about you're doing LinkedIn videos, and this is for you as a sales professional or a caster.
Sales professional.
Interesting. So, and you're finding success there, is that right?
Yeah, so basically what I was doing is just trying to come up with a creative way of doing something different and getting out there. Everybody posts the same crap on LinkedIn, like you scroll through it and it's people resharing articles and doing all this stuff. And LinkedIn I think is starting to catch up with the times a bit as well, where you're talking about them having a creator mode where you
Mm-hmm.
can turn it on and then you can share some of the topics you talk about and then that'll make you more easily searchable. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that makes sense. But then if I'm going to be in this kind of creator mode or have creator mode turned on, why don't I create things? I literally do it, for streaming all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I came up with, just little ideas of different videos. And some of it is to highlight the product I'm selling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's just talking about leadership and business and all that kind of stuff. But they're all little like, you know, 2 minute, 3 minute videos talking about a specific topic and just putting it out there. And it's so interesting because typically, if I share something on LinkedIn, I'll get 500, 600 views.
Wow.
Shared my first video, got way over 2,500 views.
Okay, that's
And
really
all of a sudden,
impressive.
people are connecting with me on LinkedIn and people I'd never seen before. And like, don't get me wrong, I
Mm-hmm.
have messaged family, friends, and coworkers to whore out my message as much as humanly possible and to share it and all that kind of stuff.
Respect it.
But,
Respect it.
just being able to see that, hey, my reach is increased. Forget the topic. It doesn't even matter. My
Mm-hmm.
reach is increased and more people are seeing my name and seeing what I do, which means if they're looking for what I sell, they're more likely to come to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it's just so easy for me to do based on the fact that I've have practice doing it. They're 2 3 minute videos, might take me half an hour to edit them after and get them up and reaching out to 2,000 people that way as opposed to having to cold call a bunch of them or email a bunch of them. Like it seemed like just such a simple straightforward approach to just be again more efficient with my time. And you were telling me about
Mm-hmm.
the Twitch piece and how that live interaction is so interesting when you're talking about any topic. So to be able to even take that and turn that into like something on Twitch would be super interesting. Now that you're mentioning it, my
Mm-hmm.
juices are flowing, and I'm thinking about, hey, how could we maybe one day turn that into something different? So
Yeah.
just so many interesting opportunities out there.
I love it. So there's a couple levels I really like about this. One quick trick for like all social media, I think you're taking full advantage of it, is when a social media site, LinkedIn is very much a social media site. When a social media site wants to use a feature, they juice the power of that feature.
Mm-hmm.
So YouTube Communities is the famous example where Spiffing Brit, a YouTuber, pointed out that just by submitting a question and making a poll with listing a couple big YouTuber names, it could reach 5 to 10x his audience size than his normal videos would. It would just get out there at a rate that was irrationally high. Because YouTube was saying, hey, we want you to use the community mode, which is their knockoff of Facebook posts.
Right.
And so LinkedIn is going for that same thing of videos. Facebook actually is another good example of a place that also struggles with that, which is they want videos. and they'll juice your reach on that if you're willing to bring content there instead of YouTube. And I love that you're taking advantage of it, and you're taking the skills you got from the Gwent. You have an active Gwent YouTube channel. So, hey, you know what? You already make videos there. Why not make the professional sales? We know people on LinkedIn are probably interested in sales and HR products, and therefore there's a nice potential market to put out videos, and LinkedIn's going to support it the extra mile. And you're right. You might be able to someday transition that and do some kind of like Twitch live interaction talking about sales, then post that on LinkedIn, and things start to get beautifully overlapped, where you get to take skills from effectively your hobby and apply it into a business sense, which also comes with an extra level of real return that beyond just, getting the different primes and subs on your channel, which is pretty cool. Give you a lot of credit to that.
It was interesting, right? Because we talked about, or I've been talking about how much I took from my business life and my career and taking that and brought that to streaming and casting and all that, and taking some of the tips and tricks I learned. But this is the first time I've really taken something and gone the other way, where it's exactly like you said. Even if it doesn't turn into even a single sale, it's just fulfilling personally to say, I just did this as a hobby and it's actually returning something, on LinkedIn, just getting my name out there and all that kind of stuff. It's just so much more fulfilling than getting like $2 off of a Twitch sub would ever be. I still love my Twitch subs. If people want to sub to me, feel free.
No, not going to regret it.
But it's not. But it's not about that, right? So it was so interesting to see the progression of that and what that turned into.
No, I love that. And we kind of alluded to about the conversation, Harris Heller, Devin Nash. And these are the two creators who are very focused on streamers. Harris Heller is really just focused on streaming, where Devin Nash is a businessman first, streamer second. It's just that his business involves streamers and interacting with streamers. Tell me a bit about your experience finding them, interacting with their content, or what they represent to you. Did you do a lot of research with them? Tell me more about them.
Yeah, so Harris Heller, I think if you go on YouTube and you search anything even remotely tied to streaming, he is the first person that shows up, and you get just a slew of his videos. And there's a few others as well. Just for myself, he's the one I kind of gravitate to, just in the way he puts his videos together, because they are very well produced as well.
Yes.
So it looks really nice when you're looking at it. But yeah, it was, when I started streaming, again, I talked about kind of that self-help and a lot of the self-development I did in my career, but it was the same thing for me going into streaming. Well, let me go find the people who are better than me at this. They're sharing their information and their findings. Let me go jump in. And, sometimes it was little tweaks. Like, I think he talked about noise gates on your mic at one point. And I was like, that's brilliant. I need to set that up. So a lot of it was me watching things going, okay, this is what he's telling me to do. I have it open. I have my OBS open. I'm going back and forth and making sure things are nice and clean, and like talking about lighting and talking about all kinds of little things. I was like, this is so smart. And then it just turned into getting more around, because I even find Harris as a creator over, I guess, the year and a half I've been watching him now, has even changed as a person a little bit, because his first videos were very much tutorial based streaming. Here's how you set up your camera. Here's the best camera to buy, or whatever. And it's turned in more now around some of the bigger conversations around, YouTube or Twitch. Some of the, hey, if you are looking to get into a career, here are some things to keep in mind. And it's become a little bit more overarching as opposed to being very, very specific about products. And I like his mentality around that too, because he's very much said, like, yeah, I use I don't forget what it was, like a $5,000 mic. But I also used to make music. So that mattered to me. And now it doesn't, but I have it. So I'm going to use it. But don't go buy one, because that's stupid. Like, don't do what I do. So it was a lot more around that. I thought that was really interesting as well. The direction he takes to say, be reasonable about what you're doing.
Exactly. And I think he's a good example of a creator in general, because he started out, as you mentioned, really like niche products. His background was in sound. So he really understood how microphones worked. And he has a $5,000 microphone, but it's also, if your background and your channel is background sound and your channel is equipment, it kind of makes sense very naturally to have state-of-the-art equipment to show it off, show how great it is. And that's content in and of itself. You can compare new microphones versus what a really fancy one would do. And also, music is a passion of his and a big part of his future. And you see him very naturally expand from tutorials on equipment and microphone. He helped me figure it out in like webcams as well. Helped me figure out during the pandemic what I needed to find in a webcam. And that's actually how I ended up with mine. And then from there, he expanded a little bit more into the conversation on Twitch and streaming, saying this is realistic, this is not realistic. And now you see him expanding again into music and pivoting in his whole business effectively behind the scenes, leaning into copyright free music, or at least music you're free to stream, and making money off of that, investing in that, turning a profit there. Very natural developments as a creator, all within the same space, but going for something very niche to very broad. And I like that because you can interact with him as creator level, getting good tips on tutorials and the streaming meta. But you also can see him as a creator, a beautiful example of how to grow from something niche into something bigger, a natural expansion. So I have a lot of respect for him there.
100%. And you also see him develop into just a really smart businessman, right?
Oh,
Where
yeah.
I saw an
Really
opportunity,
good.
all these DMCAs are coming out. Well, how do we solve that? I have a background in music. We make music. And just seeing the wheels turn as he talks about, I don't know how many companies he says he owns now, but there's quite a few because he's continuously expanding and looking for new opportunities within a field that's probably a bit underserved. So he's taking advantage of the aspect of, I have a certain level of knowledge, of followers, of tools, and there's an opportunity here. So I'm just going to take full advantage of it.
Yeah, and he figured it out way before anyone else. There's some premium service you can pay $5 a month for, but what he did is said, look, I'm going to put in $30,000. I'm going to pay a bunch of music creators, put together a playlist, put it out for free on Spotify under a record label I create. And when people are listening to it and hitting the ads or Spotify Premium and it's playing, I'm making money. But because mine's free and super easy, everyone knows Spotify, super easy to access. Unlike different platforms you have to pay money for, you are a step ahead. And so even when soundtrack by Twitch came out, which is their copyright free, DMCA free, perfectly safe music, you're going to be good. And for people who don't know what DMCA is, it is when a production company basically says, you're using my music, you're going to be potentially fined, your channel's got to be taken down, if you put on YouTube, all the revenue from your YouTube video is going to go to them instead of you. It's a really dangerous business as a creator, and it can cost you a ton of revenue, if not your entire channel, especially on Twitch. Twitch is particularly brutal about those claims. Get 3 of them and you're out. So it's a huge deal as creators, and Harris Heller simply found a way to make the easiest and most accessible platform and put a ton of effort into it. And to understand how big a problem it is, recently, I think just a couple days ago, Riot Games, owned by Tencent, known for games like League of Legends, Legends of Runeterra, right, the card game that you mentioned earlier, Teamfight Tactics, Valorant, so many now. There's so many of them now. They did such a nice job as a company expanding out quickly, just a few years ago from one game to multiple. They just dropped a 37-track album of lo-fi beats that are free to stream, right? So even these gigantic companies are realizing there's opportunity here just to get notoriety, like a positive sense of notoriety, get known for helping out the streamers, giving them good music. But Harris Heller figured it out a year ago and put in the money and time and has a huge head start, building out his own record label, paying for great music. And he's making a lot of money off of that, and I expect he'll continue to do that. He has ambitions for his record label, and it's just churning. Beautiful to watch in motion. Because seeing people be successful in business is, again, goes back to that attraction to people who are successful, who you want to learn from. It doesn't have to be someone in person. It can be online, looking at someone, admiring someone, saying, I want to be like that. How do I do that? Got to be careful who you pick, but as long as you pick the good, realistic people, you'll be fine. Because there are plenty of swindlers as well. Got to be a little cautious.
Oh, totally. And it's just watching Harris, you can see there's like a wholesomeness to him. And then you watch him grow, and you can tell that there's, I don't know, I guess the reason that I enjoyed so much is you can literally just watch him kind of graduate from one step to the next. You can see that, I'm doing this thing. Oh, wait, this came up. I can take advantage of that. Let me jump in. And then, okay, this is working. I'm not going to stop there. Let me continue to expand. It's such textbook kind of business that it's super easy to follow along with if you're following along with him, and you see it growing. You're like, man, this just makes so much sense. And it's, don't get me wrong, not everybody has $30,000 to invest in something like that, but it was fairly low risk because he had the audience. You got the cash to do it. The need exists. And don't get me wrong, he gets a fraction of a penny every time a song is played, but it didn't take him long to have 1 million plays or something on Spotify. It was ridiculous how quickly that rolled.
Yeah, I think it took less than a year to pull it off and make it profitable, which sounds scary, but I'm gonna say something. It's a little bit privileged, a little bit arrogant, but if you are in a really a nice country, so you're in Canada, I'm in the United States, and you have some opportunity here. So maybe you don't have debt. So in Canada, you're not going to get educational debt or nothing significant. USA, you might. So that's a privilege. I did not. But you can build up while you're young, if you don't have responsibilities, a fair chunk of change and take a gamble. And I would not have realized that until somebody pushed me about a year ago into taking on some more risk, showing me that I was playing it too safe. But there's a number of people probably listening to this who are you need to really sit there and reflect. Hey, you, a random person listening or watching, do you have responsibilities other than put rice and beans in your mouth and a roof on your head? Do you have a ton of debt? Do you have some cash saved up? And do you have a dream? Maybe you should sit down and reflect. Do you want to take a shot? Because when you're 35 and you have a mortgage, as you do right now, your shots change. Not that I think you've expressed any regret about going into sales. I think you quite like it and that startup environment you're in right now. But you should be reflective at where you are in life and the opportunities that are available to you at all times.
I and to your point, I don't regret this at all, because even just over the past year and a bit of streaming, I am just so happy with what I've accomplished and where I'm at, and the things that I have done. And I never thought I would be at that, level of even doing, casting an official Gwent event period. Even, I mean, it's just a qualifier, but you look at some of the people who are doing these qualifiers and they are full-time streamers and that's all they're doing all day long. And for me to kind of step in and do it part-time and get away with, squeaking in and getting some of that, I was just so happy with where I've come to. And
Yes.
the thing I look back at myself and say as well, if I wanted to do that, if I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity I would have had, like, God, I feel old sometimes, but like I would have had to do that 10 plus years ago. And I don't know that ever would have crossed my mind 10 years ago, let's say.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't feel like I missed an opportunity because I'm not sure it was there or as prevalent as it might have been today.
Correct. Because streaming is new. And it's still, I mean, the fact that I'm here, to me, or at least I'm betting on the fact that it's underdeveloped by a significant margin, even though there's plenty of big names and such. I'm gambling on the fact that streaming is being underutilized, and I intend to prove it. Right? So there is, but that go back a decade ago, streaming isn't a thing. Twitch isn't going to become sold, or isn't going to be sold to Amazon for $1 billion till many years later. So that opportunity might not exist. And one thing I really like about you is you are a great example of someone who found an opportunity in many ways shouldn't have existed, but does because you were willing to take a chance. As you point out, Flake got into casting because he built an entire freaking tournament and went into the red to do it. And that got him a foot in the door into one of the most competitive spaces there is right now in esports. Everybody wants to be a caster. It's what you see when you tune into an esports event. It's the personality. It, in many ways, is the role that drives the event beyond just the players and the competition. But you snuck on in, got your foot in the door saying, oh, well, I'll be a tournament admin. Nobody really wants that role. It's why 983 Media was like, oh, great, we can just slot him in. Oh, we don't have a cast for the cards tournament. Oh, just get Chris. Chris has got this. We need a host here. We got but this and that. And you get your way in where people right now are just struggling, trying to go from the jump of streamer and a high level streamer, but into casting is a big jump. But you found your door and you were able to do it as a not even part-time, just on the side as a hobby. You have a natural next step, but I have a lot of respect for that. You look at your situation, say, here's the risk, here's the reward. There is no risk, lots of reward. I'd be really happy. Let's give a couple calls, see what 983 Media is up to. See if I can get my foot in the door. So good.
Like you said, what's the worst that can happen, right? But I appreciate the kind words. They're if I knew I was just gonna come on here and get talked up for a couple hours, I'd 100% happy to be here.
Well, I'm glad. Well, I feel like it's just kind of like picking your brain right now. You can go wherever. I have the bullet points I was able to figure out about you. It's always interesting trying to research someone like a streamer. Because it's like I got 3 paragraphs on you. I got the Team Band the Gang paragraph. I got the About Us on the YouTube and Twitch, which I think one of those might not have had anything there. And then I
don't know that my YouTube one has anything. Yeah.
And then I think I get your Twitter, which is like 3,000 tweets, of which most of them are random YouTube videos and such. But I make do. But it's always interesting to start when you start picking someone's brain, seeing where they excel at. And you seem to have a very good risk reward business mindset when it's been a great conversation. To be frank, we are only halfway through my bullet points so far, which is always hilarious. By the way, I know you have time constraints. How are you doing on time?
You are still good to go. Let's keep rolling for as long as we can. And if I have to cut it a bit short, I will let you know.
Perfect. So we talked about Harris Heller. Do you pay a lot of attention to Devin Nash?
A little bit less recently, only because I've been busier with life, and I find
Hmm.
Devin Nash is somebody you have to really focus on, pay attention to, and spend a decent amount of time doing so. I
Yes.
think I really enjoy Devin Nash because I talked a few times
Hmm.
about like my analytical brain and how that works, and he
Hmm.
breaks it down and presents the numbers and presents them in such an interesting, dynamic way that kind
Hmm.
of meets that need between that analytics, number driven side of things, and then
Yes.
the that content creator niche that he still manages to fit into.
Hmm.
So like just presenting information or his interviews and the way he talks to people is so unique. But I haven't followed as much recently just because, like I said, I think you really have to be dialed in to listen to the conversation and pick up all the nuances that they go and do back and forth.
No, I agree. He definitely does long form stuff that goes in deep. Luckily for you, in the past 2 months, I don't think he's posted anything, so you're not behind. He just kind
Oh,
of dropped
really?
off there. Yeah, it's been very depressing because I do enjoy his stuff because he goes in deep and he has strong opinions. I think it's really something I really enjoy about him. Having strong opinions is okay, and it's also okay to be wrong. But I find when you in life put out opinions, it's more interesting. So don't go. He doesn't play it safe. He says this is good, this is bad, and sometimes a month later he'll eat some of his words, and I'll be like, ha. But I'd rather him take shots and explain his logic and learn from that, and then learn from his failing, as opposed to somebody who just is wishy washy. And being in the business, since he is in the business, you get a much more insight there into the numbers, the analytical side, which is so key because if you're going into streaming full time, in many ways, even as a hobby, numbers matter.
Mhm.
Streaming is a game of viewership versus hours versus monetization, and you need to make it work. And even as a hobby, it's a lot more fun when you have 15 to 20 people watching you than five, than one. And so when you made the jump from family and friends to friend Hearthstone to, hey, I have a bunch of viewers in Gwent who want Gwent, life gets a lot better, but you have to pay attention to numbers and you can prep for that and plan for that. That's something that Devin Nash, I think, really does a nice job highlighting. So I wish he would talk more business. Everything ends up being esports and streaming. That's my only complaint about it. He has a
Well,
really. Mm-hmm,
I was just gonna say that is his business, right? To
mm-hmm,
him, that's business. But it's exactly like you said, where he dives in and he gives you his opinion, and it's oftentimes kind of a hot take, and
mm-hmm.
he sort of approaches it from this is just what I think, but here's my logic behind it. And I think it is interesting because he will admit to being wrong, and a lot of times he's like, look, I was wrong, but this shouldn't have happened, or this person
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't have seen success. Like, don't model yourself after what this person is doing,
Yes.
because based on the numbers, based on past history, that probably shouldn't have happened.
So exactly. So tell me, he once was asked, "What's his most controversial opinion?" I want your hot take on it. In response to him getting asked that
Ooh.
question, Devin replied, "I don't think luck exists. A lot of it's controllable. If you're working hard enough and you position yourself properly and give it enough time, you will just succeed." So what is your thought on that? Do you have any
So
thoughts?
I
Mm-hmm.
completely, I don't want to say I completely agree with that statement because I
Mm-hmm.
think luck does exist. I
Mm-hmm.
do not think luck is as big a contributing factor as most people think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think luck exists regardless of where you are. I mean, heck, we talk about playing Gwent, where literally drawing your cards is to a certain degree luck. But how
Yes.
you build your deck around it is trying to control that luck. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, same thing in a business world where, I pick up the phone to cold call somebody. I can be the best friggin' cold caller there is.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't need my product, I can't say anything to force them to buy it. But if I call that person at the right day, at the right time, I have a better chance of maybe connecting with them because they just had a bad day.
Yep.
Their current software is not working right, whatever the case may be. So I think luck is exactly that. If you're doing everything else right and you're putting yourself in a perfect situation, then yeah, luck definitely exists and makes it a little bit better. But that piece of luck that you may think that, oh, that never happens to me. Yeah, well, maybe it happened and you were sitting on your stream and you weren't engaging with chat,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody showed up and they looked at you and like, this sucks, and left.
Yes.
Like, doing the right things make luck happen to a certain
Mm-hmm.
degree.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that take where I think luck exists and you can reduce the amount of effect on a situation by doing things correctly and you
Mhm.
can make it nearly negligible. You can't get rid of it entirely. There is a bit of chance at the moment. The person might be having a bad day and you're going to miss. No matter what you do, you just got unlucky. There was no way to get the information to make the correct decision. Likewise, you can sometimes luck your way into it. Someone's feeling really generous If on like a cold call, you might just, they're feeling generous today. They're having a good day. Of course, this cold caller is going to fit into their perfect day. This must be an incredible solution to their HR needs. And yeah, so like if you're streaming Hearthstone and you're one of the 100,000 billion streamers at one viewer hoping to get noticed, you're not going anywhere. Go to Gwent, get a core audience built up, go to a slightly larger game, build up another core audience, diversify your content, bring something interesting, bring something unique, and those start to tilt it in your favor. Don't just play the Twitch game, play the YouTube game, play the Twitter game, play all the different games. And all of a sudden, you're starting to decrease. You're increasing opportunities to be noticed. You're decreasing the potentials for misses, and you'll eventually, most likely, will succeed. And some people are sitting there and they just bash their head in, doing the same thing over and over, and they don't get anywhere. And they're like, "Why am I not getting anywhere?" Because you're running on a treadmill, and you need to try not running on a treadmill if you want to move forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. But and that's
Mm-hmm.
anything you do. And I can talk about yesterday. So I was streaming yesterday and Shinmiri rated me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was probably like 8 or 10 people in the category, and Shin was at like 1,000 viewers or something.
Yep.
Wonderful, like he's always at. And he rated me. And was that pure luck because he randomly picked out you? Maybe some days he does that. Or maybe he said, "Oh, Christo, I know him. I'm gonna rate him." Or yeah, it could have been a coin flip. Who knows? But hey, that doesn't mean I'm not going to, reach out to him at every opportunity I have to thank him or chat with him or whatever, so that next time he does see me, hopefully he will rate me because we've got a relationship there. So could that be luck? A little bit, but am I trying to put it as much in my favor as possible? 1,000%.
Yes.
And I think on top of that, what you were talking about running on the treadmill is really important. Like my YouTube, I honestly don't always get a chance to update it as much as I'd like, and I go through bursts. But something I learned was, okay, I post deck guides because people just post deck guides. That's what they do. And they get like 200 views. And then I posted a video around one of the journeys. Cause like, what if I do something like, is this journey worth the money? People were asking me in chat, should I buy the journey pass? Should I not? So I do that one, and all of a sudden that has 6 times more views than all of my other videos. I was like, to your point, I could have just put out deck guides over and over and over again, and probably would have slowly increased, and people would have, eventually caught on. Maybe not, who knows? But why run on that treadmill when, hey, I can try something different? So I was like, let me give that a go. And I said, well, if people like the is this worth it, then maybe for this new expansion, maybe I do it. Is it worth the money to buy the expansion pass? Like just trying different things, because again, how much time does it take me to record a YouTube video? Let's say 30 minutes of video, 30 minutes of editing. It's an hour. The commitment is low. The potential return is high. Let's put luck in our favor that, this will be found with a different algorithm, with a different set of search tools, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and I think I love that. There's so many levels that it's good. One, the bravery to experiment. Hey, you're doing deck guides. You know what you're getting in return. It's working fine, but low risk effort to put out one video that doesn't fit the mold. Try it. You got a huge audience, got a big spike. Love that. That's really, really, really valuable to know. And so that every 90 days a new expansion pass will come out, and I'll be one of the first people to put out a video on it, and I will get 6 times whatever my current audience is on that video. So next time you get 1,000. Let's say you build up over the next 90 days, your average video goes up to 500. Hey, that expansion pass will have more momentum than before. Maybe it'll get 6 times again. Maybe it'll get 3,000 views. That's really good. And also, just you experimented, right? So sometimes you flop. Remember when Specimen Gwent, also does Joe, came on the show and he talked about, I think we talked about it on the stream, might have been off stream, where he talked about doing a video on The Witcher on Netflix, and it kind of bombed, but he wants to keep experimenting in that space because it's a very natural progression. Go from just Gwent to all the Witcher stuff. And with more media being made there, you can expand a little bit. So there's a bit of risk reward going on, and also long-term view when you are willing to take those chances. And that's critical to grow as a creator and also find your niche. And you also mentioned how everybody's doing deck guides. Seems like the natural next best choice. But if everyone's doing something, you have to compete with a lot of bigger creators. If you start niching it down a little bit, you're going to find more success. So there's a niche group of people who want to go on YouTube and get some advice on the expansion pass, which is a surprisingly subjective thing. You have to know that there's a couple cards listed to get a couple packs and get some cosmetics, but you found a way to appeal to the people that needed some guidance, and it worked. And then you get to do it next time, and maybe next time you'll do some more experimenting on the pass. Maybe say, oh, here is your weekly update on here's how far you need to be, how many games or what level you need to be in the past to make sure you're on track. Here's how many games you need to play additionally. all kinds of stuff like that. I love it.
Well, it's funny. I remember lurking in your stream actually, and you were explaining why your logo is just a blue dot because it's exactly the same thing.
Yep.
Everybody else has the same logo that they got off of Fiverr, or
Yep.
whatever, with like their name on it and their little picture,
Uh-huh.
and it's all the same. So
Mm-hmm.
why not do something completely different? Because worst case scenario, somebody looks at it and goes, "What the heck is this?" And they're gonna click on it because they want to know who's the dude with the blue dot.
Exactly. Who's the dude with the blue dot that has viewers? Because it's the
Yep.
worst logo I could think of that seemed realistic. Purple is taken by Twitch, or else I'd probably done purple. I thought pink was a little too bold. And then red, green, colorblind knocks off red and green. I don't like orange as a color. I don't really like a putrid greenish color, and also Dream took that. So yellow and green kind of get removed as well. And so I'm just like, oh, blue's there. We'll be blue. Black and white don't stand out enough. I was like, oh, we'll just be a nice dark blue. It'll look weird. And it works. And I did it again also with the channel emotes, where everyone on Fiverr, everyone is doing animated emotes. And it was all, if you type on Fiverr, Twitch emotes, because you can get some custom emotes for your channel that chat can post, all animated. So my first conclusion was, under all circumstances, I must not have animated emotes on my channel. I must not have anything anybody has drawn. It can be my face in a GIF moving is fine. It can be a picture of my face. It can be my face with a filter. It can be a real life picture of an animal, but I will under no circumstances will have a single animated, like anime-esque animated emote on my channel that is not realistic looking. Because people are doing it. And it goes back to actually something Devin Nash says all the time. If you want to be an anomaly, you can't play by the rules. You can't do what the other people are doing. So, if you want to be a doctor, get a house, kids, wife, or husband, whatever you want, spouse, that path is very linear. It's very easy to define. Just copy everybody there. If you want abnormal results, you need to play by a set of rules that other people can't. The Jack Ma madness. And that's why I'm a blue dot. That's why there won't be beautiful little animated-esque Pixar Disney-esque emotes on my channel, because everyone's playing by those rules. I want to be a different way. I'm going to go a different way, and that's how I'm going to find my success. And we see you doing it too with the LinkedIn videos. Also really creative. A good highlight there. Not just in streaming.
You stand out when you're different. That's all it comes down to, because in this world of business people and streamers and casters and content creators and everything, if you don't stand out, then you get lost in this sea of things. It doesn't matter how great you are or how awful you are, you get lost all the same.
Yeah, 100%. That is so very true. Let's see. I did have another question for you. So how did you, one of the things that really stands out as a streamer, ironically, is that you have a really nice brand. You have the Christo Cafe. It tells a bit of a story and immediately gives you a feel. When I went to your stream, I think for the first time I ran into you, I was like, wow, this place is cozy. I forget if I rated you. I think I rated you. We both had about the same size stream. Gave you a little raid. You're like, who are you? I'm like, I've been streaming Gwent for a month. I think I got a raid from somebody else earlier that day. And you're like, oh, hi. I'm like, hi. But I'm like, wow, this is cozy. You got this beautiful cafe logo. Everything's beautiful. And I'm like, ooh, this is nice. I can get used to this. How did you develop this brand? Because it stands out from anything else I've run into on Twitch. Like, no one calls their stream. Okay, please, go for it.
So the first thing is kind of along the lines of what you were talking about, right? Where you want to be different. And I didn't want my logo that I came up with to be, another logo of like some cartoony face with like your name under it or anything like that. And I wanted to do something different. And I couldn't figure out exactly what it was. And it's currently still my sub alert, and I will probably change it because it's kind of like not suitable for work sort of deal. But Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is one of my favorite movies. I'm a big Kevin Smith fan, so all of his whole series of movies, Clerks and Mallrats and Chasing Amy and Dogma and all that. And at one point, one of the characters they're trying to get by a security guard, and the whole logic was, what if one of us gives you a blowjob? And the guy's like, nah, that's not going to work. He's like, what if I give him a blowjob? And he goes, okay, but at the end, can you say, ooh, what a lovely tea party? And so that clip, the oh, what a lovely tea party, just became one of like the sounds that came up in my channel, and Flake was bugging me to like add it as a command and things like that. So I was like, okay, cool, let's do that. So that was one of my things. And before the Christo's Cafe bit came out, I was like, well, we're talking about a tea party. Like, what if it was a coffee shop? I'm a big coffee drinker. I like my coffee. So why not make it a coffee shop? We can be Christo's Cafe, my logo. And like, don't get me wrong, I went to Fiverr and found somebody and was like, I want a logo. I like pseudo to rip off the Starbucks logo a little bit. I want a coffee thing. I want Gwent cards. I want a microphone, and I want Christo's Cafe on it.
Love it.
And they came up with what I think is a really, really nice logo. I was really happy with it, and I threw that in there, and I, changed my following notification to Shoop saying welcome that he says when you go into the Shoop shop or whatever it is. And I put the little coffee mug. I was like, you know what? This is coming together nicely. And then somebody threw something at me that like, you should put this on your menu. And it was, I don't remember what it was. It was something tied into Gwent in one way, shape, or form. I was like, that's so brilliant. Why don't I have a menu?
I like it.
And so one of my channel rewards is you can submit an item for the Christo's Cafe menu. And so I do specials usually and alternate them weekly or bi-weekly or whatever. And so people will contribute either something like when Iced first came out, I think B Fox told me he wanted an iced coffee on the menu.
It's good fun.
So some of them are really punny and some of them are really just fun and interesting. And one came up because Rumblin' Bum Cheeks,
legend,
whose name is Stellar, he called it a Mississauga margarita because he lives in Mississauga, and it was literally orange juice and Budweiser, and I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, man. I'll put it on my menu. And then what does he do? And he goes and creates a video of him making a Mississauga margarita and posts it on, I don't know, YouTube or Twitter or whatever.
Love it.
Like, that's brilliant. And then somebody else, JC Scars, comes in and goes, well, if you're making one, I'm making one too. So he made a video. So I was like, well, screw it. I need to make a video too. So it was just like a lot of little things that all of a sudden contributed to growing this whole idea of like what my weekly specials are and what the hours of the cafe are. Those will be my streaming hours. And the video, and I found an awesome artist randomly through Twitter. Well, I say randomly, and we talked about how luck really isn't a thing, but I was following her boyfriend at the time because he was a caster.
Nice.
Caster for League of Legends, I want to say. He's actually now involved in esports for a university in the States somewhere. But I was following him, and somebody had asked the question about, does anybody know a good artist? And he posted his girlfriend, and I saw her thing, and I was like, this looks really good. And so I had her do my emotes, but I had her do my background, the banner for YouTube and for Twitter. For Twitter, YouTube, Twitter, and I guess Twitch as well. And it is my favorite piece of art ever. I literally have to put it up. I literally had it printed out.
Wow. It's great.
Because I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so I want to put it up on my wall.
Yeah, I gotta put it, make the white void go away. I feel like that's where it's naturally going, but
totally. But yeah, it was one of those things that, it started with like a really random sound bite from a movie, and then it just like little pieces got added on, and it was, oh, you should have this in your menu. And then, then I could do opening hours. And then I went through a period where I actually created on Twitter every week. It would be like my weekly menu. I would go on to Adobe Spark and I would create my opening hours and have my hours. And then I'd have my specials on it, and I have my specials based on whoever submitted them that week. And so just something different that would get noticed, that wasn't just somebody posting text of, here are my hours. It was an image. It was something I would pin to my Twitter page every week. So it was visible, it was there. And then just kind of slowly built off of that. And then before Stream Beats came out, I was YouTubing DMCA free music. And the first thing that pops up is DMCA free coffee shop music.
Beautiful.
And I was like, well, that fits perfectly. So I would play that. And I would just play Gwent and have the whole cafe thing going on.
I love it. Right, the whole everything about that story just screams exactly what you should be doing. Take a crazy idea, run with it, and then you watch it compounding. Your associates might be different suggestions are coming in, and things compound, things go beyond what you expect, and you end up with this incredible brand, right? Whether it's things like Rumblin' Bum Cheeks starting off, actually making the menu item he submitted and inspiring other people to do the same. Whether it's knowing another caster and their girlfriend is an incredible artist and creating an incredible piece of art for you. And I'm sure you paid for it because sometimes things work, right? It's not just... Totally, right? It's not for people who are saying they're like, oh, you just asked. No. You pay up. But you connected, you networked, and of course, that person's happy because now their girlfriend has business, you're getting great art, big trade. I love all of that. I also don't think you ever have to change the brand, even if a not safe for work story. But it does remind me of a funny story back in college. There was a couple of students trying different startups, and one student talked about a story about having, this was their idea. It was, in my opinion, a terrible product. It was an aero mattress you'd put under a carpet. So that you'd store the air mattress under a carpet to save for room, which never made any sense to me. But yeah, I think it was terrible. They would like Velcro it to the bottom. And the story to tell was they were having a student come over, a prospective student, and didn't have a bed for them. The actual story, though, I found out later on was one time somebody was really, really drunk, and so they needed to put them up in their apartment for a night. And so they're like, wow, I really wish I had an aero bed, but I had no space. So they thought of this. So when they go to pitch investors, they're like, oh, yeah, we had a prospective student, because it sounds so much nicer than, yeah, we were all really drunk, and then one person couldn't make it back to their apartment. So I just needed them, like, you know what? I really wish I had an aero bed under this rug right now. But so you don't have to stick with the not safe for work story. You can lie, but I don't think you have to also abandon the brand. You can also tell the truth.
Oh no, the brand is staying. The sub notification may change eventually,
I see what you're saying.
but yeah, it's about the end result sometimes. The story you can kind of manipulate a little bit to make sure you get there.
Yeah, I could say I had a great experience in Starbucks one winter, but I mean, I guess it's a little late with this record permanently telling the story about that movie that inspired this very wholesome brand.
Right?
I know, right? It's so
Ironic
good.
how that worked.
So good. So let's see. I guess my next category I want to talk about is a bit about the Bandit Gang. So you joined a content creation team. So tell me a bit about your experience of that, joining it, and what's it been like since you've been on it?
Sure. So probably a lot of this is going to echo what Denpai said when he was on your show, because I was listening to him and it was just through and through exactly that. What happened was when I started working from home, I was mentioning I had Flake on a lot, and then just time slot wise, I would watch Mercern a lot and Baby Joseph a lot. And they just kind of fell, like one was right before and one was kind of after Flake. And so I'd be watching them, and they were both part of Bandit Gang. And then Denpai reaches out to me randomly one day on Discord, and I'd never spoken to him before. And he's like, "Hey, a lot of the guys on the team are bringing up your name of wanting to have you join the team." I was like, "I don't, sure, okay, why? Like, what's it about? What do I get out of this? What do you expect from me?" And it was just such a nice experience because for him, it was like it's a bunch of people with kind of a similar mindset that want to get together and work together and put out content and just support each other. And we had kind of a fledgling pro team at the time that's actually done quite well now. And he's like, you can have pro guys that'll help coach you if you need and things like that. But it was more of the people first approach, which is something I've always been a big fan of. They didn't look at numbers. I at the time was probably averaging like 20 viewers, and I felt really good about that. So it wasn't you're the biggest streamer. It was just, you know what, you seem to fit in with the people we have, and that means we're going to work together well, and it's going to be nice and smooth to have you join the team. So, that's been, I mean, it's probably been about a year ago that I joined the organization, and it was fun because, it was just that. It was a group of people, and we came together and we created content. And the funny part was when we started, we really didn't create that much content. So it's been fun watching the team evolve as well. We've gotten so much more organized. We have so many projects going on. We have so much happening that it's cool to see that we went from just a bunch of people who wanted to essentially hang out together and have an excuse to chat together to, putting together a beginner series that we're doing the lore blast that we do, having tournaments regularly internally, which I thought was super cool because now the pro players can practice and the content creators can practice casting that tournament. So like there's just so many things that have evolved over time, and just seeing where we came from to where we are today, and the amount of content and quality content we're putting out, I think puts us up there with just about any other team in Gwent right now.
No, I agree, and I should specify that when I say content creator for our content team for Bandit Gang, it's just that I know you're very much on the content and casting side, but you're right, as with the Denpai interview, very, very close to breaking through and starting to really get competitors up there with the larger teams like Team Artusa and TLG, who do content, but they're really known for the competitive side, and Bandit Gang is quickly catching up. It's just it's more
been a really cool experience.
Yeah, it goes back to that more of a matter of time as opposed to luck. They're getting enough people that are placing in top 64 are getting shots to qualify for the Open. It's just TikTok, right? Clock will eventually strike, right?
Exactly.
So, going there, I also love that, again, we go back to the opportunities. Hey, you get more casting experience. So if there is not a tournament going on in your life, band the gang, being a very ambitious group of individuals, really nice, really interesting approach, because they don't care much about viewership. They just care about producing great content. And I like that approach, and it suits you because you also like producing great content. This is a hobby for you. You have a smaller streaming base, but you do go out of your way to make deck guides. You do go out of your way to do that really interesting journey pass video, and you'll do more of that in the future. You built that as brand. You're passionate about the game and games you cast. So might as well join this group, get more opportunities, put out more interesting content, connect with more ambitious individuals, and that fits into the narrative in your business world. I love that it carries over very much into the streaming and casting side of things as well.
And it's exactly that. It's continue that networking piece, right? I get to
Mhm.
align myself with like-minded individuals, and as a group, you can do more.
Mhm.
We organized an event with Team Creve
Mhm.
to do like a meme tournament, which was
Yes.
super fun. But again, it was another opportunity for us to work with a different group of people. I got to cast that event with B Fox, who's somebody
Mhm.
that I love his stream and I rate him almost every night just because of how the time slots fall. But he's
Nice.
just a great dude, and I got to cast with him, and it was a ton of fun casting with somebody new for the first time.
Mhm.
And we've got a charity tournament coming up at the beginning of August with Shoop TV, the French group. Because
Nice.
again, it's just one of those things where you can start getting people together on a larger scale and get
Mhm.
organized.
Yeah, and also you're getting in that with those opportunities, you're setting yourself up for international tournament experience,
Oh,
where a lot of
totally.
these games are, especially digital world, are international. So hey, all of a sudden you're figuring out how to cast tournaments where not everyone speaks the same language. Is there any barriers? How do interviews work? A lot of extra variables, and you're getting more experience with that. And you just keep on building up that resume, get to that next step, and rinse and repeat. Just kind of let the casting grow while your content ability grows. And then also, as you're getting better at that, it feeds into things like the LinkedIn videos for your sales. And it's this beautiful cycles of hobbies and work blurring a little bit, both supporting each other. And it
Yep.
is excellent. Like that is as a beautiful symbiotic relationship.
I preach efficiency. That was always my biggest thing. And so if I can be doing more than one thing at a time, then
Hmm.
even better. Yeah. If I can be creating content while I'm building my casting resume, while I'm casting with somebody new, while I'm making contacts in different countries with
Hmm.
different groups, like, hey, why not do all of that at once?
Love it. I think that's excellent. So, what is the future for you, do you think, when both casting, streaming, sales? Tell me about the future of Chris.
Oh, the future. Man, it's it's so interesting because through the whole pandemic bit, I feel like a lot of things have been put kind of on hold to a certain degree.
Hmm.
So for me, I mean, career-wise, I mentioned I'm kind of in an organization that's still in startup mode, but that's been fun because I've gotten to build out a lot of my own processes and hire my own people, and that's
Hmm.
been a blast. And that's what I want to continue to do because, I talked about the paying it forward bit before, and just
Yes.
from a career perspective, I feel like I owe a lot forward. I feel like I need to give other people that opportunity that I had when I first started, and people
Hmm.
picked me up and trained me and helped and developed me. So I see a lot of that in my future, and that's why I love the aspect of, hey, I get to sell, but I also get to impact people on a daily basis. So
Hmm.
continuing to grow from that perspective is a big part of what I'm doing from a professional side of things. And then from a Gwent and casting and streaming side of things, like I mentioned
Hmm.
before, I'd love to be able to actually do a Gwent Open. I'd love to travel to either Poland for Gwent or Iceland for cards, or heck, both, to
Hmm.
do events live and in person. I think that would be a huge kind of feather in my cap for what I want to accomplish.
Hmm.
And then streaming, I just enjoy hanging out and playing a game and chatting with wonderful people that, I know Rumblins here in Psychoki, like just people who have supported me for so long and just come and chill in my stream, and
Hmm.
we have a good time, and I don't like to take myself too seriously. And I love the Christos Cafe vibe because that's really who I am, where I just kind of chill and have a good time. And every once in a while, RNG kicks me in the butt and I flip out. But otherwise, pretty, pretty chill kind of deal. So that's why for streaming, like I was saying before, I don't ever foresee it becoming kind of my main source of income. So at a certain point, not that long ago, I was pretty like numbers based. I saw that number creeping up to like partner level where I'm averaging like 70-ish viewers
Nice.
and
Uh
stuff
huh.
like that. And it's like, does that make sense? Does it make a difference for me at this point? Like, doesn't really matter. And that just got me thinking too much. So whenever I had a bad day, it would be really depressing. I was like, you know
Yeah.
what?
It
It doesn't
hurts.
matter. Yeah, it does. Like,
Mm-hmm.
who cares? Who cares if I'm partner or not? It doesn't change anything for me. If
Mm-hmm.
anything, it actually limits my options to do other things. So you know what? Screw it. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna keep streaming, having a good time, and keep building up some of those other things I'm doing that I have more, maybe more ambitious goals in.
Yeah, I like that. You're prioritizing your goals properly. And I think that's one of the things that throughout this entire conversation, it's been really accurate and coming through loud and clear that you're very good at that. You know your career comes first. You need to help pay for the mortgage, help support your fiance. You have responsibilities. And after that, you have your more ambitious goals in casting and you have streaming, which should just be fun. You're right. You are somebody who attracts plenty, can really sit down and attract plenty of people. You could build up a streaming base, but your risk reward's a little different now. Your own personal goals that you want are a little different now. Makes sense. You know what? And screw the numbers for a bit. Numbers aren't what leads you to get casting gigs. Casting, you have some ambitions there. You want a feather in the cap, casting a Gwent Open, going out either to Poland or something big for cards, go out to Iceland. Prioritize properly, and I'm confident you'll just execute upon it. It's almost a matter of not luck, but time. Yeah, building out that resume, waiting until that opportunity appears and taking it. I like it.
And I mean, that's like time for me, because this is a hobby, is a big part of it, right? I need to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that I am prioritizing properly and I'm doing the things that are important, that are going to get me that next opportunity, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't have the 60 hours you do to,
Yes.
be able to try and build a brand on Twitch and things like that. I'm cognizant of the fact, but I still want to achieve my goals. So, hey, how efficient can I be? How can I make sure I prioritize properly and I get things done as efficiently as possible to get there?
Yep, that makes a ton of sense, and it comes through loud and clear. All right, so why don't we go ahead and transition over to Q&A real fast. So, how did you end up with the name TheOneChristo?
Okay, so going back to when I first got my first email address, I was trying to figure out how to get um to put something together that wasn't already taken.
Mm-hmm.
And so my full name is Christopher.
Okay.
My grandmother, being Italian, would shorten it and would call me Cristo a lot of the time, with a much more Italian accent that I'm putting on it. But
Mm-hmm.
I would not ever want to try and do that and sully her name. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it was Cristo. So I was like, okay, well, let's try. If Christopher is definitely not working and Chris isn't working, let's try Cristo. And then you try and submit it, and then it comes back and it says, um, that's taken. Do you want to try one Christo or
Mm-hmm.
Christo one? Or so it's like, okay, well, if the number one is in front, it seems a little bit weird, but I actually went with that and I added the, so it was just
The
the
one.
number one Christo, and I ended up changing that to the word one, but that's essentially
Nice.
where it came from. My lack of creativity in creating an email address like 20 years ago.
You know what? That's how a lot of our names are made. So no shame there. It makes perfect sense. Let's see. Next one. What other games are you? Ooh, let me rephrase this one a little bit. What other games interest you other than Hearthstone and Gwent in terms of casting?
Interesting. So here's my kind of philosophy, and it ties into just games in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I play as well as I cast. I like card games because I have never been good at anything that requires excellent timing or
Mm.
like actions per second or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, or actions per minute or whatever it is. I can't even say it. I clearly can't do it. So, like first person shooters are just not my thing. I play with my buddies and I die a lot. Rumbling
Mm-hmm.
can attest to
I
this.
feel
I'm
that.
not a good Apex Legends player. But anything with like a slower pace is something that I've always just enjoyed playing. And I think that's why I gravitated towards card games and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's just always been something with a slower pace. So I could see myself doing more of like an auto battler type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
like TFT or something like that, where again it's a little bit more strategic. Let's look at the lineups and how they interact and things like that. So I think that would be the direction I would take if I were to cast, let's say, outside of the card game realm.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, find the slow stuff. I'm also the same. I'm not good at RTSs. I'm not good at first-person shooters. Give me something slow, a little bit more cerebral, and it'll
Yeah.
be fine. I'll be much better there. Next question for you, and I think this is the final one I'm going to ask here. Have you ever thought about organizing your own tournaments?
So sort of.
Okay.
I don't really do. I mean, I haven't had to do it alone to the point of kind of how Flake did his, because with 983, we've been going back and forth with a lot of different ideas. So something else we're actually doing. And again, I think it's to be a little bit more outside the box. Like, yes, you can run a tournament, you can do whatever, that's fine. But we've got, and like Mark Theus 93 is awesome, and his like production is next level good. So we're doing in a couple weeks the actually next Friday,
Nice.
the Gwent duels. So we're doing the
Ooh.
Ultimate Master.
Oh, that's
so we've got
that's gonna be cool.
Hole versus Paya.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's again, that's that networking piece where Mark this can put together a hell of a production, and Flake knows a lot of people because of the casting and all of that. So like, hey, let's do something unique. So we're gonna have the two of them going head to head, and I'll give a little teaser because I don't think it's been announced yet. We're also gonna have a couple fun undercard matches there. We want to make it feel more like kind of that boxing or UFC type of feel where you've got like the headline fight and you got a few on the undercard that are going to be really, really fun based on who's involved. So it's, for me, it's always been like, well, we could do something. Let me tap Mark Theus on the shoulder and see if he wants to produce it and do the graphics for it. And then, yeah, let's see who Flake knows to get involved. So I haven't really done my own per se, but I love working with them and just coming up with some fun creative ideas, like reviving the Gwent trivia show and that kind of stuff too.
That's awesome. I love that even though you aren't technically doing it by yourself, you don't have to. You have connections. You have people who can produce great stuff. You are connected to Flake, not only being childhood friends, but also a very accomplished caster in his own right and has organized his own tournaments. Start putting a meeting of the minds together, put together something really special, because I think people are looking forward to the two Gwent players who've won different masters, the only two masters in existence, playing each other to find out who's the king of who's really is the king of it all. It's gonna be great. I love that. All right, this is the moment. The floor is yours. Chris, do you have anything you want to say to the people?
Man, having to like think on the spot now. I feel like I've just talked for like the last 2.5 hours. But no, like honestly, just from a general perspective, first of all, John, thank you so much for having me here. This has been an awesome chat, and I love the approach you're taking of talking behind the scenes and really understanding like who these streamers are as people. Because I think like in what we've been talking about, so much of my career crosses over into my streaming and vice versa, that I think who I am as a person is a contributor, or so many things are a contributor to who I am as a person and a streamer and a caster and all of that. So I think this is so cool. And just in general, like I appreciate all the support from everybody in the community. And I think that, just, I was saying before, right? Like I finish work and then just do something fun and easy going and chill. And I think that if the result of me coming in and turning on my stream and going live wasn't having people kind of chill and just having fun interactions with me, then I wouldn't still be here, and I wouldn't be doing this, and I wouldn't have done any of the things I've done. So just a huge thanks to the community for being wholesome and just having fun with me and coming and hanging out. I appreciate each and every one of you, whether you have spent a second in my channel or, rumbling, I can't get rid of you.
Well said, well said. Well, Chris, thank you for spending so much time with me today. You can catch him on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter, and it's well worth your time. Thank you so much. Shout out to McRandar and Ahmed Ali for all their support on Patreon.